Chapter 11:11. Can't you see what kind of occasion this is? Stop fooling around. If word of this gets out, the Zhai family won't benefit either. Second Master Zhai hugged Liang Yongyu tightly, but failed to take her away. Liang Yongyu pushed her husband's hand away and glared at Tongning. I don't care. I'm going to make Tongning apologize to me today. In this way, she could continue her performance. Did you take the wrong medicine? If she had taken in my daughter for a little longer, even if it was just for a little longer, my daughter wouldn't have gone missing. Liang Yongyu yelled as she pointed to Tongning's nose. Everyone in the wedding hall turned to look at them. Are you crazy? I'm crazy. Liang Yongyu pushed her husband away and placed her hands on the dining table. She then glared at Tongning coldly, either apologize to me or return my daughter to me. You're always pretending to be kind and loving to help others in the industry. Is it all fake? Tongning, I knelt down and begged you. But I never expected that you would turn a blind eye to it. You're amazing. Look, if you had taken in my daughter back then, my daughter would be able to go home now. So, it's you. It's you who caused my daughter to go missing, it's you. Liang Yongyu threw caution to the wind as her questions were sharp and powerful. Just like that, she questioned Tongning why she didn't take her daughter in. But Tongning stopped Ting from speaking and asked, why should I take in your daughter? Did I make you give birth to 2 daughters in order to marry into a rich family? Did I tell you to leave your daughter by my husband's car? Why should I take care of the child you gave birth to? Are you my descendant? What's my relationship with you? Liang Yongyu, it's my duty not to help you. Now, I'm sure that I made the right decision back then. As for why your daughter disappeared, you should ask yourself. Where did you dump her? Mrs. Mo, please don't say any more. Second Master Zhai was afraid that if he continued to speak, the Zhai family's secret would be exposed. Who gave you the right to insult my wife like this? Ting, who had been silent the entire time, finally spoke up. How shameless are the Zhai family? I want to see it today. The Zhai family doesn't have the right to speak in Beijing. Since you invited us here, don't act like you're rich and powerful. Don't you know how powerful the Zhai family is? Either you apologize to my wife right now, or you explain everything about the child today. Anyway, there are thousands of people here. As soon as he heard Ting's threat, Second Master Zhai immediately said, President Mo, don't get angry. In front of everyone, your woman wants my wife to apologize to her? Did I hear that right? Don't you know about the Zhai family? Do you know how to control women? If you don't, I can teach you a lesson. At this moment, no one said a word. To be exact, they were all intimidated by Ting's aura. He didn't appear to be agitated, but his words were so oppressive that they couldn't breathe. Especially towards the Zhai family, every word was filled with a sense of threat. As a result, the Zhai family's parents immediately rushed over and tried to calm them down. President Mo, I'm sorry, but can you give us some face and let this matter go? I can't. No one has ever dared to yell at my wife in front of me. Ting had no intention of backing down. Let's resolve the matter regarding the child today. Otherwise, if Liang Yongyu continues to bite onto my wife, how am I supposed to argue with her? President Mo, we still have business dealings with the Bei family. You should know that you have business dealings with the Bei family, not the Mo family. Ting yelled. When the Zhai family is able to do business with me, then you can use this trick to beg for mercy. What do you think about my wife? She doesn't look like someone that can be easily bullied. The Zhai family were helpless as they glared at Liang Yongyu. But they had no choice. Ting had already suggested it. If they didn't do as he said, the matter would only get worse. So, Father Zhai directly bowed and apologized on behalf of the couple. I'm sorry, President Mo and Mrs. Mo. I didn't teach my child well. Fine, I'll resolve it. Do you think I'm afraid of the Mo family? Liang Yongyu yelled loudly as Father Zhai bowed. Do you want to get a divorce right after getting married? Second Master Zhai threatened. But this trick obviously didn't work because there was no fear in Liang Yongyu's eyes. Fine, I'll get a divorce. I'm going to tell everyone about how the Zhai family tortured my daughter to death. Everyone, before I got pregnant with this baby boy, I already had 2 daughters. When I was 20 years old, I followed this bastard. But because I didn't give birth to a son, my older daughter was tortured to death and my younger daughter almost died at the hands of this family. So, I carried my daughter away and asked Tongning for help. But I never expected that she would leave me to die. Since things have already gotten to this point, I might as well not get married anymore. I'll just abort the child later. But the Zhai family are too much of a bully. No one expected that Liang Yongyu would play a trick on the Zhai family at a place like this. Although scandals like this were no longer a secret among the rich and powerful, for Liang Yongyu to expose them in front of so many people, it was a huge loss of face. Liang Yongyu, do you want to die? Ever since my daughter went missing, I've wanted to die. After seeing Liang Yongyu's act, Tongning finally understood her true intentions. Who said that this woman was brainless? Liang Yongyu was deliberately using the opportunity to expose the Zhai family. Liang Yongyu wanted to humiliate the Zhai family at the wedding. If they got a divorce, they would get a share of the Zhai family's assets. With the addition of the child and the lawyer, Liang Yongyu would probably get even more. This was a good idea. Only an act like this, killing two birds with one stone, was worthy of such a luxurious event. Otherwise, Tongning would have looked down on the retarded Liang Yongyu. The Zhai family obviously didn't expect that Liang Yongyu would go all out. Second Master Zhai looked at Liang Yongyu in shock. He was completely speechless. Zhai Lin, let's get a divorce. Zhai Lintian did not say a word as he threw a slap across Liang Yongyu's face, causing her to fall to the ground. As soon as Zhai Lintian lost his temper, Tongning realized that Liang Yongyu had found another opportunity to complain, as expected. Stomach, my stomach? Can anyone save me? Chapter 11-12. As a result of Zhai Lintian's actions, Liang Yongyu ended up having a miscarriage. A grand wedding was turned into a mess by the bride and the Zhai family was completely humiliated. No, the Zhai family's true loss was yet to come. After all, Zhai Lintian's actions in front of everyone meant that Liang Yongyu would receive a bigger share of the family's assets. By dragging Tongning into the mess, she would be able to humiliate the Zhai family and take their money. This was exactly what Liang Yongyu wanted to do. Outside the hospital, Zhai Lintian heard Liang Yongyu's cries to the media. He wanted so badly to sew her mouth shut. If he had known this would happen, he wouldn't have been so merciful. The Zhai family tortured my daughter to death and Tongning did nothing to save her. I will deal with them through the legal system, Liang Yongyu cried as she answered the media's questions. But the Zhai family had no way of controlling the situation. After all, Liang Yongyu had caused a scene at the wedding. Afterwards, the Zhai family expressed their apologies to Mo Ting and Tongning. We're sorry, President Mo. As you can see, the Zhai family was set up and we're currently in a terrible situation. I hope we didn't cause too much trouble for you and Mrs. Mo. The reason why Liang Yongyu dared to do what she did was definitely because someone was guiding her. The Zhai family should be careful, Mo Ting reminded. Especially tell Second Master Zhai not to be angered by Liang Yongyu again. Otherwise, he will continue to fall into her trap. Thank you, President Mo, for letting bygones be bygones. No matter how big of a grudge they had, it wasn't worth it. Especially since the Zhai family was currently being set up by Liang Yongyu. Tongning told him not to hold the wedding incident against her. After all, the Zhai family was currently in the middle of a storm. But Mrs. Mo's reputation. Take care of the Zhai family instead, Mo Ting said. In other words, he didn't need to worry about his woman. This time, Tongning was in an awkward situation due to Liang Yongyu's involvement. Everyone knew that she hadn't done anything wrong. Yet, in Liang Yongyu's mouth, she was called a sinner because she didn't take her daughter in. Including the argument at the wedding, there were also different versions of the incident. It was obvious that the people in the industry had seen the incident as a joke. But the thing that made them the most frustrated was the fact that Liang Yongyu had used them as a stepping stone. Liang Yongyu actually dared to step on Tongning's head. Think of a way to fight back. Everyone is laughing at you for being the wave on the beach. Long Jie heard some gossip and felt a little upset. This woman actually dared to step all over your head. If this is her way of getting revenge on me because of what happened in the past, then she has succeeded, Tongning smiled. This pisses me off, very pisses me off. How long do you think the Zhai family will let someone like Liang Yongyu live? Right now, we're just waiting for the limelight to blow over. Once no one pays attention to Liang Yongyu's matter, it won't be long before she dies. She has indeed been in the limelight for once, but I'm afraid her days from now on won't be easy. Long Jie, find an opportunity to keep an eye on Liang Yongyu. Make sure she doesn't leave Beijing. Perhaps she has already seen through my plan and will choose to attack me head-on. Indeed, Tongning's guess was right. In order to keep the peace, the Zhai family privately approached Liang Yongyu to negotiate with her. But Liang Yongyu directly offered a sky-high price of $1 billion. Although the Zhai family felt that Liang Yongyu had gone too far, compared to taking half of Zhai Lintian's wealth, $1 billion was already considered gentle. So, the day after Liang Yongyu received the $1 billion, she cried in front of the media. She claimed that she dreamed of her daughter telling her not to go against the Zhai family, so she listened to her daughter and cut all ties with the Zhai family. All she took was a small sum of money. By doing this, Liang Yongyu established a confident and daring personality in front of the media. She even boasted shamelessly in front of the media. I hate money the most. I simply wanted to know if there was true love between the rich and the powerful. But I lost the gamble. From now on, I will enter the film industry with all my assets. I feel that a woman should have her own career, so the first thing she did after entering the film industry was announce that she was going to film the Ant Queen's special death. As soon as this news was released, everyone saw through her intentions. Fuck, this is another person trying to ride on the popularity. Why doesn't this piece of trash just call it the Ant Queen 2? Although we won't watch a piece of trash like this, the thought of it lowering the average standard makes me angry. Can't the government give the exclusive rights to sci-fi films to Tongning? We can't let these evildoers wreak havoc on the world. But, no matter how much the public ridiculed her, Liang Yongyu got the popularity that she wanted. She knew that she had offended the Zhai family, so she often appeared in front of the cameras to ensure her safety and prevent the Zhai family from seeking revenge. Plus, her film was called The Ant Queen's Special Death. The word Ant Queen wasn't exclusive to Tongning, so it wasn't a problem for her to use it. What made the public think that Liang Yongyu was smart was the fact that she directly hired a top-notch celebrity. After all, she had a lot of money. That way, it was possible for her to compete with Tongning. But the public couldn't help but sigh at how unlucky Tongning was to provoke such a shameless idiot. Everyone wanted to suck a mouthful of her blood. First, there was the fake Ma Weiwei. Now, there was Liang Yongyu. Just because Tongning didn't want to take her daughter in, did she plan to continue clinging to her? Should we change the name of the Ant Queen? Long Jie was disgusted by the name of Liang Yongyu's film. She didn't want to have anything to do with it. Why should we change it? Besides, even if you want to change it, Liang Yongyu can easily find a similar one. Do you think you can avoid it? Tongning laughed. I know, I'm just disgusted. Everyone has already acknowledged your sci-fi film, but I hope the Beijing government can do something about it. Mo Ting had already thought of this. Although he couldn't request for the film's name to be changed, he wanted the entire world to know about Tongning's film. That way, even if Liang Yongyu tried to scam others, the public wouldn't have to worry about being deceived. Especially not in the international market. I've decided to establish a Tangkor film agency that will be responsible for the PR of your film. I want to leave a Tangkor logo on the promotional materials for The Ant Queen. That way, even if someone tries to leech off of your film, the public will simply label it as a rubbish film and it will have nothing to do with us. As for Liang Yongyu, let's keep her for now. I want to see how effective this is. In other words, Mo Ting wanted Liang Yongyu to linger on for a few more days. Chapter 11-13. Wouldn't that be too high profile? As soon as Tongning thought about how her name would appear on the big screen in the future, she felt it was a little too high profile. You've created a film that shocked everyone and everyone loves it. So, no matter what you do, it won't be too much. Mo Ting pulled Tongning into his embrace and breathed in her peaceful scent. From now on, Liang Yongyu won't be the only one. There will be even more imitations that will ride on the popularity and consumers. This is what we need to be prepared for. In that case, I'll listen to you. Tang Ning nodded. After being tortured by Liang Yongyu for a few days, the Zhai family's horizons had been opened. They never imagined that there would be someone more shameless than them. After being asked for $1 billion, Second Master Zhai appeared in front of Tang Ning and Mo Ting again. He looked extremely dispirited. Now that all the power in the family had been handed over to his siblings, he was just a carefree person that spent his days wandering around. But, because he had nothing better to do, Zhai Lintian couldn't let go of his hatred towards Liang Yongyu. So, today, he paid a visit to Mo Ting and Tang Ning. But, to his surprise, Tang Ning and Mo Ting appeared extremely calm. They didn't seem to care about Liang Yongyu's provocation at all. President Mo, Mrs. Mo, you sure are magnanimous. Even after being stepped on by Liang Yongyu, you're not angry at all. I'm impressed. There's no need to get angry over something like that, Tang Ning replied. By the way, if the Zhai family didn't value men over women, things wouldn't have ended up like this. So, Second Master Zhai, you shouldn't feel wrong that you've ended up in this situation. After hearing Tang Ning's words, Zhai Lintian lowered his head and laughed. I admit that I was wrong. That's why I'm currently being punished. But what about Liang Yongyu? I've long heard that Mrs. Mo is meticulous and wise. So, I'd like to learn how to push someone beyond redemption. Tang Ning understood the hidden meaning behind Zhai Lintian's words, so she remained silent for a few seconds. She then lifted her head and looked at the man in his office and replied, Second Master Zhai, if you could keep your composure, things wouldn't have ended up like this. I've already learned my lesson. I hope Mrs. Mo can point me in the right direction. Don't worry, regardless of success or failure, I, Zhai Lintian, will not drag you down. Tang Ning shook her head and said to Zhai Lintian, if you want me to help you, it's not impossible, but I have a condition. Speak. I don't want to see a situation where men are superior to women happen to you again. Otherwise, I wouldn't help someone with a bad track record, Tang Ning said to Zhai Lintian. Zhai Lintian took a deep drag on his cigarette and nodded. I promise you. Second, don't hurt people or kill them. If you want to deal with a person, you can't make her truly afraid by using force. I'm fine with that as well. Seeing that Zhai Lintian had agreed to both conditions, Tang Ning finally got to the point. Liang Yongyu is now brave enough to step all over me. She no longer has anyone in her eyes. But there's another reason why she keeps appearing on camera. She's afraid that the Zhai family will seek revenge. The more your Zhai family acts this way, the more you will be used by her. Thus, tell everyone in the Zhai family not to act blindly without thinking. In that case, what should we do? Step out and apologize. Donate money and make up for it. We need to let everyone know that you've realized your mistake and thank Liang Yongyu for teaching you a lesson. Let's wish her a bright future. After a series of PR actions like this, the Zhai family's image will be half recovered. At least, you'll be able to admit your mistake and make up for it. Plus, if Liang Yongyu decides to extort money from you in the future, you'll be able to step out and cry to her. This is the best solution for the Zhai family right now. Second, if you want to make Liang Yongyu sad, it's actually very easy. Liang Yongyu is currently riding on my popularity and has invested a lot of energy into her new film. She even hired a lot of top celebrities and spent a lot of money on it. All you need to do is help her hype up her new film and make her the #1 celebrity in the world. You can use the reverse psychology of the audience to your advantage and make her feel bad for a while. In our industry, this is called overpraising her to death. Right now, she's simply taking advantage of the slap you gave her to become famous. But her popularity will eventually die down. If you want to make her lose both her body and money, she'll be beyond redemption. Of course, while the Zhai family is trying to clear their name, you can keep an eye on the expert that helped Liang Yongyu. It's best if you have evidence. That way, Liang Yongyu's days of suffering will come even faster. After hearing what Tang Ning had to say, Zhai Lintian couldn't help but laugh in admiration. As expected, the rumors are indeed impressive. Mrs. Mo is indeed an expert. I've never taken the initiative to treat someone like this. But I will return the favor. Let me warn you, if the Zhai family isn't sincere in their apology, then I will take the initiative to explain everything to the media. Don't worry. With a role model like you, I'm happy to have a daughter. Thank you for today, President Mo and Mrs. Mo. Tang Ning shook her head at Zhai Lintian. Gesturing that he didn't need to be polite. After all, on a certain level, she and Zhai Lintian did indeed have a common enemy. But she wasn't going to use someone else to do her dirty work. After all, everything she told Zhai Lintian was to help the Zhai family. As for her and Liang Yongyu, they were going to be dealt with separately. Those that dared to step on her and climb up the ladder had to pay the price. Liang Yongyu's film was indeed very popular. Although the majority of the people were scolded, there were still a few top fans that spoke up for their idol. She hasn't even started filming yet she already knows that her film is terrible. Are you guys prophetic? My idol's acting is so good, there's no way her film would be worse than Tang Ning's. How is she leeching off Tang Ning's popularity? It's not like the title Queen Ant only belongs to her. What could she do against this group of people? Afterwards, Hai Rui officially announced the establishment of Tang Ning's studio. In other words, from now on, all of Tang Ning's films would have a logo that belonged to her. This was equivalent to giving her films a label and a mark. This is good. From now on, when people see this logo, they will know that it's produced by Tang Ning. It'll be more obvious than before. Hai Rui sure is fast. But I guess they were forced to do this by the pirated version. This way, Tang Ning's films will be easier to recognize. From now on, people will only recognize this logo. President Mo is too smart. He's amazing. I don't want to watch any of those disgusting and rubbish films. Let's not even talk about it. Let's go and find out who the producer is. This was equivalent to giving Tang Ning's films a perfect identity system. After all, a logo was unique and would be prosecuted for infringement. Chapter 11:14. Liang Yongyu wanted to ride on the popularity of the Ant Queen, so she threw a lot of money at it. But Tang Ning's mission was to make her lose everything. All she was doing now was selling her image. But what was the fate of any artist who didn't show any real talent when it came to selling their image? Either his persona was ruined, or he himself was ruined. But no matter what she did, she shouldn't have used Tang Ning as a stepping stone. Otherwise, she would be digging her own grave. Are you trying to sell your persona? For the sake of her daughter, she didn't want to bow down to her status as the wife of a wealthy family. Her backbone was selling like hotcakes, but don't forget, when Liang Yongyu abandoned her daughter, Mo Ting asked Lu Che to retrieve the surveillance footage from the theater. Lu Che also had information on the second time Liang Yongyu abandoned her daughter. Since that was the case, why should he be polite? Of course, Lu Che couldn't expose the two videos from Hai Rui or Tang Ning's point of view. So, he pretended to be a bystander. At first, he simply posted a short message. I really don't understand how you guys could be tricked by Liang Yongyu. When she threw away her child, she wasn't worried about his life at all. I was an eyewitness at the theater's parking lot. Originally, I didn't want to say anything, but now that I see Liang Yongyu doing so well, I'm a little jealous. It turns out, a public persona can be sold in this way. Liang Yongyu and a bunch of other defenders came over to ask for a hammer. Wasn't it popular now to ask for a hammer and get a hammer? In that case, Lu Che would also follow the trend. So, Lu Che decided to release a video of Liang Yongyu placing her daughter beside Mo Ting's car in the dead of winter. In such a cold environment, Liang Yongyu put down the child and left without a trace of hesitation. This caused a lot of mothers to be disgusted. Forgive me for being blunt, but she's a bitch. She actually left her child in the snow. My heart aches just looking at her. She's obviously trying to extort money. What can't Liang Yongyu do? Yet, they insisted on placing it next to President Mo's car. Wasn't this clearly implicating the couple? And there were a bunch of people praising her for being brave enough to love and hate? It makes me want to poke my own eyes out. Afterwards, President Mo and Tang Ning saved the child. Look at the videos. Tang Ning is so kind. How dare you step on my name? This kind of trash doesn't deserve it. I can't believe such a disgusting woman has fans. My worldview has been refreshed. Meanwhile, scandals about Liang Yongyu continued to be exposed to the public. Meanwhile, Liang Yongyu was under a lot of pressure. After all, even though she managed to get past the Zhai family by using Tongning as a stepping stone, she wasn't doing well in the industry. Because Tongning wanted to let her know that she would continue to suffer from the backlash of this incident. Afterwards, Liang Yongyu came up with a new plan to distract the public. She decided to expose a photo of Tongning attending her wedding with her two sons. They tried to use Tongning's twins to distract the public's attention. Of course, she didn't just put up a photo. She hired a fortune teller to read Zichen and Zishi's fortunes. When it came to Zishi, it wasn't too bad. After all, Zishi was destined to be a general and had a bright future ahead of him. But when it came to Zichen, it was said that he was the bane of his family and was a wastrel. The Mo family and Tang family would be dragged down to their deaths by this child. So, the best solution was to find a way for this child to get rid of the demon, and such fortune-telling content had actually become a hot topic. Plenty of people looked down on the fortune teller. You're using someone's children as a scam. Why don't you calculate how long you have left to live? It's rare to see photos of Tongning's children. She simply took them to a wedding. How could she be cursed by such an evil person? Children. It was obvious who was behind this. But Tongning never expected that Liang Yongyu would directly step on her bottom line. How dare she use Zishi and Zishi as a shield? As Long Jie sat beside Tongning and noticed the expression on her face, she felt a chill down her spine. It was rare for her to see Tongning with such an expression. She had always been calm and collected. Yet, this time, it was her own sons that were being used as a scam. As soon as this news was released, I immediately gave Lu Che a phone call and told him to remove it from the search rankings. I also told him to delete all the photos of the two young masters. Luckily, it hasn't affected too much. Tongning, what do you plan to do? You're pregnant, you should go home first, Tongning said in a cold tone. But Long Jie understood. After all, the children and Mo Ting were Tongning's bottom line, yet Liang Yongyu had stepped on it. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in Mo Ting's office wasn't good either. I don't care what method you use, I want Liang Yongyu to be completely blacklisted. Tell everyone to go against Hai Ru. President, are you going to do it the hard way? I don't care if it's soft or hard, I just want Liang Yongyu's name to disappear from Beijing forever, Mo Ting said coldly. Investigate the person behind her. I don't care who's giving her advice, do as you see fit. If that person's life is too easy, you won't be as relaxed. I understand, President. This was the first time Mo Ting had told him to notify everyone in the industry to ban Liang Yongyu. If anyone dared to use Liang Yongyu or work with her, they would be going against Hai Rue. As soon as the news was released, everyone in the industry immediately stopped working with Liang Yongyu. This time, Lu Che had spoken to the media. Hai Rue was going to do it the hard way. Even if Liang Yongyu cried and complained, she wouldn't receive any exposure. Of course, Liang Yongyu never expected things to turn out this way. It seemed, she had no idea that she had already been blacklisted by the industry. Even though Liang Yongyu tried her best to throw money at her film, all the top celebrities had to withdraw from it. After all, who would dare to pluck the hair from the tiger's mouth? A story began to spread within the industry. When someone heard that Liang Yongyu had been blacklisted, they laughed at Hai Rue for being petty and were immediately kicked out of the company. This time, Hai Rue's attitude was obviously fast and ruthless. The next day, Liang Yongyu received all sorts of phone calls telling her to stop working with Liang Yongyu. That's when she realized that the situation had gotten serious. With this thought, Liang Yongyu gave the director she was working with a phone call. But the director was afraid that someone would find out that Liang Yongyu was on the phone. It's best you don't call me again. I don't want to lose my job. Hai Rue has publicly blacklisted you and everyone is on their own. You better take care of yourself. Hai Rue had blacklisted her? Because of her, she exposed Tongning's child? Was that necessary? Liang Yongyu's lips curved upwards coldly. So, she immediately gave her advisor a phone call. I've been blacklisted by Hai Rue. What should I do? Come to my house and we'll discuss it, Liang Yongyu's advisor said in a deep voice. Chapter 11:15. The Zhai family quickly published an apology in the newspapers. Whether it was to the public or to Liang Yongyu, the Zhai family showed their sincerity. In order to atone for their wrongdoings, they decided to donate $100 million to the impoverished area. Seeing the Zhai family spend so much money to apologize, the public only had two thoughts. If the Zhai family weren't stupid, then they were truly regretting their wrongdoings. This method effectively restored the Zhai family's image in the public's hearts. At least, they were no longer being pressured like they were previously. As for their relationship with Liang Yongyu, they had already done their best. But the Zhai family still thanked Liang Yongyu for waking them up. After looking at the Zhai family's article, Tongning turned to help Mo Zichen put on his clothes. It was easy to wake the Zhai family up, but who could wake Liang Yongyu up? It wasn't that she didn't know that Mo Ting had blacklisted Liang Yongyu. But that wasn't enough. Liang Yongyu now had $1 billion on her. Even if she couldn't continue in the entertainment industry, she wouldn't be afraid. If it was just a grudge between adults, it wouldn't be a big deal. But Liang Yongyu actually used her two children? So, she had to put an end to this matter. Late at night, inside an apartment in Beijing, Liang Yongyu rang the doorbell and was led into the living room by a man. "No one followed you, right?" the man asked as he poured a glass of wine for Liang Yongyu. He was dressed in a white shirt and a limited edition watch. "No," Liang Yongyu said as she put down her handbag. "I just don't know what to do right now. I can't do anything in the entertainment industry." "You still have money. What are you afraid of?" The man sat down on the sofa and handed her a glass of wine. "Why don't we partner up and start a company? You can't stay in the entertainment industry forever. You'll have to leave sooner or later. Now's the perfect time." "I'm not cut out for business." Liang Yongyu immediately shook her head. "You're not, but I am. I happen to have a project in my hands. You can have a look and consider investing in it. Chile, although you helped me get my $1 billion back, I don't like it when other people control my money." Liang Yongyu obviously didn't feel safe about her investment. She simply felt that it was a losing business. "It's fine if you don't want to. I'm not forcing you. If I'm really doing this for your money, why would I help you for free?" The man called Chi Lei shrugged. "I won't force you to do anything you don't want to do." The man's words successfully comforted Liang Yongyu. "Forget it as long as you're happy. However, you need to reduce the number of times you come here. After all, being caught by the media isn't a good thing." Liang Yongyu nodded. She enjoyed it very much when the man lowered his head. Not for any other reason, but because this man called Chi Lei was not only a lawyer, he was also extremely handsome. Any woman that got close to him would have their imaginations run wild. Especially since he had helped Liang Yongyu so much. As soon as Liang Yongyu heard this, she tried to move closer to the man. "That's not what I meant. I just hope that you can be careful. I'm doing this for your own good. Look, you're spending money so lavishly now. How long can $1 billion last for? I just want you to have a guarantee." The man took the opportunity to seduce Liang Yongyu. "If you really want to be with me, you need to accept my male chauvinism. If you don't want me to interfere with your life, we can stop contacting each other from now on. Chi Lei, during my most difficult time, you helped me. You are the person that treats me the best in this world." Of course, the woman couldn't resist this kind of temptation. Under Chi Lei's constant pestering, she finally agreed to open a law firm with $300 million. After all, Chi Lei's job was to be a lawyer. Liang Yongyu had no idea that Lu Che had sent someone to follow her. The next morning, Lu Che placed the information on Liang Yongyu's strategist on Mo Ting's desk. This Chi Lei and Liang Yongyu have worked together a few times before and have gradually become familiar with each other. Perhaps he knows that Liang Yongyu is a big fish, so he put in a lot of effort to gain her trust. In fact, he even helped Liang Yongyu secure a $1 billion breakup fee. That's why Liang Yongyu trusts this lawyer. According to our investigation, this lawyer has a total of 3 girlfriends. He's a complete playboy. All the money he scammed from Liang Yongyu, he used it on his other two women. He's really something. In other words, we don't need to do anything for Chi Lei to help us deal with Liang Yongyu. As for Liang Yongyu, don't alert her. Contact Chi Lei's other two girlfriends and help them get to know each other's identities. If they're willing, ask them to cooperate and put on a show for Chi Lei to scam all of Liang Yongyu's money. Do you think Liang Yongyu will turn to the Zhai family after losing all her money? How would I know? A woman's heart is like a needle at the bottom of the ocean. Lu Che laughed. No matter what, they had everything they needed to deal with Liang Yongyu. All they needed to do was add fuel to the fire. Although the photo incident didn't cause any harm to the kids, Ting still wanted Liang Yongyu to pay the price. But to Ning's and Ting's surprise, Second Master Zhai gave them another phone call. This time, he arranged to meet them at a 5-star hotel. From the sound of his voice, it seemed his previous gloominess had been swept away. Even his tone was cheerful. Ning and Ting arrived on time. But as they arrived, Zhai Lintian arrived with a classy socialite. Ting and Ning looked at each other. They didn't understand what Zhai Lintian was trying to say. Let me introduce you to Miss Jiang Roland. Her father is a government official and her mother is in the medical industry, Zhai Lintian said as he sat down. After speaking, Zhai Lintian sat down and explained, back when Mrs. Mo asked me to make a public apology, it was indeed very effective. Now, the Zhai family has stabilized in many aspects. As for Roland, after seeing me make a public apology, she contacted me and said she was willing to give it a try. After a few days together, I've realized that I've fallen in love again. After hearing Zhai Lintian's words, Ting and Ning looked at each other. In the past, I didn't believe in love at first sight. But, after everything we've been through, I find it unbelievable that someone is still willing to hold my hand at a time like this. I will only continue to be with you if you've truly changed. Otherwise. Chapter 11:16. Don't worry, in order to live up to your kindness, I will definitely grow up. The couple began to flirt with each other. Sometimes, the world was a strange place. Some people just happened to find love at the wrong turn. Even though their relationship had just started and they weren't ready yet, if a prodigal son could turn over a new leaf, it would be a great story. That's why I'm really thankful to the two of you. My parents have already said that from now on, as long as the two of you say the word, we will do our best to help you with anything you need. You're not going to dwell on Liang Yongyu's matter anymore? Ning asked. I'm not going to dwell on it anymore. I hurt her and she hurt me, so we're even. I don't think I need to waste my time on a stranger, Zhai Lintian replied. I've already spoken to Ruo Lin and she supports me in coming out. Men indeed only know how to grow when they're in trouble. Let's not talk about this anymore. Tell me, how do you expect me to repay you? You have money and we don't lack money? Ning laughed. Since you've turned over a new leaf, you should live a good life and stop thinking about useless things. You don't need to repay me. I only have one condition. When Liang Yongyu comes back looking for you, you must not give her any response. Will she come back looking for me? Zhai Lintian asked as he held onto Jiang Roland's hand. Definitely. But you need to act like a rich kid. Don't be soft-hearted and fall into trouble again. Don't worry, if that day ever comes, I will tell Roland as soon as possible. This meal was one of the more relaxing ones. No one expected that Zhai Lintian would suddenly find love. But this was also good. Sometimes, one couldn't help but admit that marriage was about matching the social status of the two families, otherwise, it would be extremely tiring to interact with them. It wasn't about finances, it was more about having the same values. After the meal, although Ning expressed that she didn't want any thanks, the Zhai family were generous enough to hand over all their resources to Hairu. They also announced that they would be retreating from the entertainment industry and focusing on their own industry. Ning's help wasn't in vain. Madam President, I've arranged a wonderful show. Do you want to go and watch? No need. Take us home. Taking care of the kids is more important, Ning replied. All right, I'll tell you the results later. As for the good show that Lu Che was referring to, He was referring to Chi Lei's other two girlfriends discovering each other's existence. Of course, they were both decent women, so when they found out that their boyfriends were cheating on them, they were naturally upset and angry. At this time, Lu Che arranged for someone to meet the two women. Actually, your boyfriend has a third woman. She's the model that recently appeared on the newspapers, Liang Yongyu. The two of them widened their eyes. In order to swindle $1 billion from Liang Yongyu, Chi Lei is currently in a heated relationship with her. If you guys are willing to teach him a lesson, please contact me. Of these two women, one was a doctor, and the other was a sales champion. They were both strong women. Being teased like this, they naturally couldn't take it lying down. As for Lu Che, he had done his research on the two girls and knew how stubborn they were. That was why he was so honest with them. The next morning, the two girls contacted Lu Che's people and asked what they should do. It's simple. Pretend to be pregnant and trick him into giving you money to get married. After all, it's ill-gotten money, so you can take it for yourselves. Don't worry, in the end, I will definitely destroy Chi Lei's reputation and ensure your safety. So, over the next few days, Chi Lei was quite troubled. His doctor's girlfriend was now pregnant, so she asked him what he should do. As she was his first love, deep down, he wanted to marry her. But he had only managed to swindle $300 million out of Liang Yongyu's money. Since the two of them already had the fruit of their love, there was no way he was going to let his doctor's girlfriend get an abortion. So, he decided to settle the matter with Liang Yongyu as soon as possible. After all, he was disgusted by a broken pair of used shoes. But Liang Yongyu wasn't going to give it to him so easily. It seemed he needed to think of a solution that would satisfy both sides. Liang Yongyu never imagined that the amount of money she was carrying would attract the attention of a wolf. After all, she had just given him $300 million, so she naturally hid the rest of her money. But even so, Chi Lei wasn't completely helpless. For example, that night, he deliberately prepared a candlelit dinner to get Liang Yongyu drunk and trick her into signing the documents. She thought that Chi Lei would like her, protect her. If a person's heart wasn't in the right place, then the people she met in the same industry were all ants. How could they possibly be sincere? Chi Lei, you've been so good to me. I didn't suffer for nothing. Yongyu, you're drunk. Chi Lei whispered beside Liang Yongyu's ear. I'm not drunk. I can still drink. By the way, Yongyu, stop drinking for now. I still need your signature on the company documents. Sign it for me first. Chi Lei took the opportunity to mention that he still needed her signature to set up a company. Afterwards, Chi Lei pulled out the documents and read them out, page by page, to Liang Yongyu. Stop reading, I trust you. Where do you want me to sign? Liang Yongyu's cheeks were completely red as she leaned against the table and looked at the documents. Here, Chi Lei said as he pointed to where Liang Yongyu was signing. I'll sign it, Liang Yongyu said as she grabbed a pen. Her eyes were hazy from being drunk. She had no idea what she was doing. But she had no idea that there was a hidden layer in the documents. And the place where she actually signed was a check. Chi Lei watched as Liang Yongyu pressed her fingerprint onto the check before he put it away without a change in expression. After Liang Yongyu fell asleep, he immediately called the bank to make an appointment to transfer the funds. Liang Yongyu was actually easy to trick, whether it was when she was with the Zhai family or now, but from now on, they would have to say their goodbyes. The funniest thing was, after Liang Yongyu woke up, she had no idea that her money had already been transferred. Everything was but a pipe dream, and she didn't even realize that her misfortune was about to arrive. She was still too young. She thought she was lucky and could change her fate. But if she didn't walk the right path, she wouldn't have a good ending. All that was left was for her to discover what had happened. Who knew how surprised she would be? Chapter 11:17. Liang Yongyu was tricked, but so was Chi Lei. Although he transferred Liang Yongyu's money, he transferred it to his girlfriend's account in batches. Of course, it wasn't all of it, but it was most of it. But what he didn't know was, as soon as he transferred the dirty money to his girlfriend's account, she directly donated it to the hospital. The reason why the doctor's girlfriend put on this act was because she could fake her pregnancy without any flaws. But this was just one time to teach the jerk a lesson. On the surface, the couple agreed on a wedding date and went to register their marriage the day after. But Chi Lei's girlfriend was already prepared to retreat. During this time, apart from keeping an eye on the progress of the matter, Tongning also made preparations to return superstar media to normal. Long Jie was about to give birth to her second child, but Lin Qian was finally back in control. Meanwhile, Tongning was no longer involved with superstar media's management because she needed to move forward with Qiao Sen's film dream. Unfortunately, Qiao Sen was gone and she couldn't find a like-minded partner that could help her with her sci-fi film. Especially since she didn't know who to direct The Ant Queen 2. It was at this juncture that an artist cut his wrist. To be exact, it wasn't an artist, it was an antisocial art director. Because of his passion for artistic films, he ended up losing all of his family's savings and starved his daughter to death. After hearing the news, Tongning never expected that someone would starve to death in an environment like this. However, the director did not succeed in killing himself. Instead, he was saved by his assistant. This matter caused a sensation for a period of time, causing people to sigh endlessly. Tongning watched all of the director's films. He was depressed, heavy, and a little crazy. It was like he was the epitome of his personality. Seeing this, an idea suddenly came to Tongning's mind. Meanwhile, a few days later, Liang Yongyu finally realized something was wrong with her bank account. She had simply gone to the beauty salon for a simple facial, only to find out that she had no money left. She thought there was an error with the credit card system, so she tried a few times and finally failed to pay. Afterwards, Liang Yongyu called the bank to confirm and was told that the money had already been transferred by check. At this moment, Liang Yongyu suddenly thought of Chi Lei and the signature from the other night. Her originally muddled mind suddenly cleared up. Therefore, she immediately called Chi Lei. Chi Lei, where are you? Listening to her tone, Chi Lei had already judged that she knew that the money had been transferred, so he answered her, I'm out of town on a business trip. What happened to my money? However, what answered her next was an endless busy tone. Liang Yongyu finally felt her heart burn with anxiety, so she immediately rushed over to Chi Lei's home to look for him. But at that moment, the woman at home was Chi Lei's doctor fiancé. Who are you looking for? Who are you? Liang Yongyu asked. I'm Chi Lei's fiancé. The doctor's girlfriend purposely put on an act. Are you at the wrong place? That's impossible. If you're his fiancé, then who am I to him? Liang Yongyu pushed the doctor aside and entered Chi Lei's home to search for him. You don't have to look for him, he's not home. His girlfriend crossed her arms and said, I said I wanted to eat pineapple cake from the south of the city, so he went to buy it? Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. What's so hard to understand? Liang Yongyu, everyone knows about your situation. You gave birth to 2 daughters and even miscarried one. You're despised by the rich and trampled on by the world. What makes you think that Chi Lei would be willing to be with you? Plus, I already have Chi Lei's child and he's proposed to me. Did you really think that he would be with a used woman? Liang Yongyu's girlfriend laughed in disdain. Oh, by the way, he also transferred the $1 billion you gave me. As soon as Liang Yongyu heard the word $1 billion, she immediately ran over and grabbed onto the doctor's girlfriend's shoulder and shook her. Give me back my money. Why should I give it back to you? Didn't you extort money from the Zhai family? I've already donated all of it to the hospital. If your dream of being rich is gone, then your dream of being a rich woman should also be shattered. Liang Yongyu took a few steps back and shook the doctor even harder. The 2 women began to fight. But a moment later, Chi Lei walked in with the pineapple cake. As soon as he saw his beloved woman being ravaged, he immediately ran over and pushed Liang Yongyu away. Crazy woman, what are you trying to do? Chi Lei, why are you doing this to me? You're the one who threw yourself at me. Chi Lei yelled as he protected his girlfriend. Isn't it too easy to deal with a gold digger like you who's willing to do anything to marry into a rich family? I'm simply enforcing justice on behalf of the heavens. You're shameless. Liang Yongyu screamed as she sat on the floor, Give me back my money. I don't know what you're talking about. If you don't leave, I'm going to call security. In the end, Liang Yongyu was kicked out of Chi Lei's home by the security. At this moment, Liang Yongyu began to panic. She had nothing left, not even money. $1 billion. How could she give it to Qi Lei so easily? In fact, she even made a wedding dress for someone else. But this wasn't the worst part. The worst part was, when the reporters heard about it, they immediately rushed to Qi Lei's home and took photos of Liang Yongyu crying on the floor. Aya, isn't this a rich woman with $1 billion? Why is she lying on the floor? Stop talking nonsense, hurry and take a few more photos. Her position is so seductive. I heard that the Zhai family took advantage of the breakup fee. How pitiful is this? Leave, all of you, leave. Stop taking photos, stop taking photos. All you know is how to bully me. Liang Yongyu's pitiful cries filled the screen. What awaited her was an endless amount of suffering. Of course, Qi Lei didn't know that the reporters downstairs were called by his girlfriend. He was just curious. Of course, that night, Qi Lei's girlfriend prepared all the evidence of Qi Lei colluding with Liang Yongyu and how he cheated on the three of them. So, while Qi Lei was asleep, she copied all of his contacts and posted a video of the drama she had prepared. Afterwards, she packed her things and left. Where was she going? She was going overseas, far away from this troublesome place. That night, Qi Lei slept especially soundly. But when he woke up the next day, he was shocked by the countless missed calls that he sat up in bed. Chapter 11:18. The first person to call was Qi Lei's mother. The old woman seemed to have a heavy heart as she asked, "Lei heir, did you do everything that was exposed online?" "Mom, what's wrong? Look at the news yourself." Right now, he and Liang Yongyu each occupied half of the entertainment headlines. Liang Yongyu teamed up with her lover to scam $1 billion. Retribution. Her reputation is ruined. High EQ scumbag. Could the beautiful doctor be Tongning's apprentice? When Qi Lei saw this, he carefully looked at the content on the internet. His mind exploded. Not long after, he received a phone call from his company to fire him. At the same time, his family and friends all called him to scold him. Not only did the doctor's girlfriend reveal that Qi Lei and Liang Yongyu colluded to extort money from the Zhai family, but she also revealed that he had an affair with Liang Yongyu and used his position for personal gain. Of course, Qi Lei and Liang Yongyu were now infamous and the public began to sympathize with the Zhai family. They also admired the doctor's courage in donating the $1 billion to the hospital for cancer research. Now that things had gotten to this point, was there any way to turn things around? It seemed he would have to live the rest of his life with his tail between his legs. He would have to wear a mask every day in fear of being recognized. With this thought, Qi Lei laughed self-mockingly. He originally thought he was smart, but it turned out he was nothing more than a toy in someone else's hands. Who took who seriously? No one knew that Enchanting and Tongning were the masterminds behind the incident. So, this was the best way to repay Liang Yongyu. As of now, Liang Yongyu has been starving for almost 4 days. She has no money on her and the bank hasn't approved her mortgage. So, she's having a hard time. According to our observations, Liang Yongyu has been loitering around the Zhai family home for the past few days. I'm afraid she won't be able to survive until tomorrow. After hearing Lu Che's report, Enchanting and Tongning looked at each other. A few seconds later, Tongning said, "In that case, tell Zhai Linian to remember what he promised me." "Don't worry, madam." Liang Yongyu never expected that Zhai Linian would have a new relationship so soon. She thought that if she went home and begged, the Zhai family would give her a way out. So, she found a good opportunity to intercept Zhai Lintian's Maybach. At this moment, the car screeched to a stop. Zhai Lintian stuck his head out and saw that it was Liang Yongyu. He immediately opened the door and walked over to her. "It's you?" Liang Yongyu was so emotional that she directly knelt in front of Zhai Linian and cried, "Linian, I know I was wrong. Please forgive me. I'm penniless right now and I haven't eaten in days. For the sake of our past friendship, I beg you, give me a way out. Speaking of which, I need to make 2 things clear to you. Firstly, the Zhai family is indeed patriarchal. However, the Zhai family didn't intentionally torture our eldest daughter to death. Although the Zhai family is hateful, they aren't cruel enough to kill their own flesh and blood. Secondly, I deserve to die for what I did to you in the past. So, in addition to the harm you've done to me, we're even. Thirdly, for the sake of our past friendship, I advise you to leave the Zhai family. No, it's not like that. Lintian, I can give birth to another son for you. I definitely can, no need. Have some self-respect, Zhai Lintian said before he turned around and looked at the woman in the front passenger seat. When Jiang Roland saw this, she also got out of the car and walked over to Liang Yongyu. Although you're pitiful, I'm still happy to see you struggling at death's door. Lintian did wrong you in the past and treated you like a tool. But he also paid a heavy price for it. So, no one wants to look back at the past. Miss Liang, don't act like you're poor in front of us. You have arms and legs and can live on your own. There's no need to put on a show in front of us. In this world, not everything can come and go as you please. I'm going to make things clear to you today. I hope we never see each other again. After speaking, Jiang Roland walked over to Zhai Lintian and hooked onto his arm. Let's go home. Zhai Lintian, aren't you afraid that I'll expose everything you've done? Go ahead. Zhai Lintian did not look back as he led Jiang Roland home. No matter how much Liang Yongyu cried, he ignored her. Why did you provoke her? Jiang Roland asked Zhai Lintian afterwards. Aren't you afraid that she'll expose herself? Because I want to live my life in peace. Zhai Lintian replied. But even if Liang Yongyu cried and exposed herself, no one would believe her. This was Liang Yongyu's ending. After watching a series of events, the pregnant Long Jie felt comfortable and her mood brightened up. These bitches should be punished like this. They're materialistic and evil. Because of these people, the world is filled with filth. Liang Yongyu is just a drop in the ocean of the entertainment industry. In this industry, people chase after fame and fortune. Who doesn't have a plan behind their backs? Tongning replied as she looked at the news. Don't make it sound so scary. If there's someone like Liang Yongyu, there's bound to be someone like you. Long Jie winked at Tongning. By the way, I've been here for so long, yet you're so distracted when you're talking to me. What are you looking at? I'm looking at someone's life story. Are you trying to help a new artist? Of course not. I'm trying to save a lonely soul. Tongning sighed. After the director cut his wrist, Tongning explained her thoughts to Mo Ting. She wanted to contact the director and see if he could become the next Xiao senator, so she decided to try her best to understand the director's life story. He was indeed talented, but not many people understood him. They simply felt that his ideas were strange. In this aspect, he was similar to Xiao Senator, that's why Tongning chose him. However, she wasn't confident that the director would like sci-fi like Xiao Senator, so all she could do was give it a try. Everything was going well for her, but she was missing a director with a soul. This was the direction that she wanted to work towards. You always have strange ideas. But it's because of your ideas that you've become who you are today, Long Jie sighed. Tell me, what kind of earth-shattering thing are you planning to do this time? I don't want to do anything earth-shattering. I simply want to retain a talent. Tongning replied. You're currently pregnant, so I'll leave Superstar Media in Lin Qian's hands for now. I'll return after your baby is born. Okay, Long Jie's emotions were complicated when Superstar Media was mentioned. You're pregnant and I don't need your help with anything. From now on, you should go home and get some rest. Tongning had decided to make a move on the hospital's director. Chapter 11:19. The director's name was Bai Jun. Just like his name, he was arrogant and unruly. But how was he supposed to survive in the entertainment industry where the strong preyed on the weak? Tongning also found out that not only did he owe money, his parents were also like vampires, constantly squeezing him dry and leaving all the good stuff for his brother. So, while their oldest son was in the hospital on the brink of death, the Bai family's parents refused to pay for their youngest son's education to extend their oldest son's life. By the time Tongning arrived at the hospital, the debt collectors were causing a ruckus in the hospital room. A few burly men were dragging the weak Bai Juni while his parents and brothers stood to one side and watched coldly. You said you had 3 days? But 3 days have already passed and you still don't have the money. The debt collectors saw Bai Junyi's expression and were afraid that he would die, so they turned their attention to his family. But the Bai family's parents quickly left with their youngest son. He has nothing to do with us. If you want to pay, then go look for him, Mother Bai said as she pointed at Bai Junyi. Tongning stood silently outside the door for a minute before she gestured for her bodyguards to step forward. The 3 debt collectors weren't professional thugs, so they were quickly restrained by Tongning's bodyguards. At this time, Tongning and Lu Che entered the hospital room. Who are you? Isn't she the famous celebrity? One of the Bai family's henchmen pointed at Tongning as he recognized her. Tongning did not answer the debt collector's question. Instead, she asked, "How much does he owe you?" "No more, no less. $1. 5 million. Don't help me pay him back, I can't pay him back. After all, I'm all alone right now. If I'm full, my family won't go hungry," Bai Junyi said as he sat on the floor. "Of course, if you want to do something good, I won't stop you. Lu Che, pay him according to what he originally owed. Don't give him a single cent that he shouldn't have," Tongning said as she turned to Lu Che. "Did these loan sharks really think it was that easy to rob money?" "Okay, madam." After speaking, Lu Che signaled the 2 bodyguards to lead the 3 debt collectors out of the room. At this time, Tongning called a nurse over to help Bai Junyi onto the bed. "She is that superstar, I was right." As soon as Tongning appeared, Bai Junyi was indeed surprised. It was as if he had seen a ghost. "How could such a big Buddha suddenly appear in my small temple? Let's talk about your matter later. Let me talk about something else first." After speaking, Tongning turned to look at her parents. "From the looks of it, the 2 elders don't seem to be willing to lend a helping hand to your son. Because of him, we have to hide everywhere. I've had enough of this kind of life." Father Bai snorted. "I don't want you to be responsible for his debts, but the things he gave to the Bai family before, including money, houses, and cars, can you return them all at once? As a family, aren't you ashamed that you can't share the pain and happiness? The younger son is a son, but the older son isn't? Don't spout nonsense, old man, don't provoke her. She's very powerful. If she exposes our matter, we won't be able to keep our chastity." Mother Bai immediately tried to persuade her husband. "Let's take Xiao Bao and leave. Once we step out of this door, when Bai Junyi becomes successful, I hope the 2 of you won't turn back. When that time comes, I'm sorry he won't recognize you. Let's go." Tongning sent the Bai family away with a few words before she turned to look at Bai Junyi. At this time, Bai Junyi looked into Tongning's eyes with a meaningful smile. "Superstar Tang, I don't understand why you're helping me. I'm just a useless person. By the way, don't think that you can save me. I still owe you a lot. You don't need to see everyone wearing a thick suit of armor. Don't think that just because you're a genius that others can't understand you. If you put yourself in such a lonely position, it's no wonder your family despises you." Tongning helped Bai Junyi, so of course, she also took the opportunity to suppress him. "Ha? Is that why you're lecturing me again? Do you want to be my director? Do you want to film the Ant Queen too?" Tongning asked straightforwardly. "Did I hear that right? You're a director that makes sci-fi films, yet you want me, an artsy director, to direct a sci-fi film? Have you lost your mind? So what if it's a sci-fi film? So what if it's an artsy film? It's simply 2 different ways of expressing yourself. Don't you think that your darkness, depression, madness, and eeriness can all be combined into a sci-fi film?" Tongning asked. "Bai Junyi, let me be honest with you. The artsy film that you want in the entertainment industry has no room for survival. Only my sci-fi films can preserve your own thoughts." Although Bai Junyi didn't want to admit it, he had watched The Ant Queen before. Tongning and Xiao Sen's films weren't like those that were tacky. Their films had soul. Apart from the fate of the characters, the sci-fi elements, including the Ant Queen, had their own unique charm that made people want to understand and explore. But he was no longer in the mood to make films. His daughter was dead and everything was ruined. What was the point of moving forward? So he directly said to Tongning, "I think it's best that you don't try to stop me. Superstar Tang, I'm just a burden. Anyone that gets involved with me will be in trouble. For the sake of your own safety, you should stay away from me." I will never agree to your request. This man's personality was hard to understand and difficult to get along with. So, Tongning did not expect to succeed on her first try. When a person's heart was dead, all that was left was disdain for the world. He was tired of everything in the world, so he didn't think there was any point in continuing to live. Tongning did not force him. She simply gave him her contact details and left. But Baijuni did not even look at her. He simply closed the door and laughed as he sat on the bed. All he wanted to do was die and no one could stop him. Madam, how did the discussion go? Hearing this, Tongning shook her head. I don't think I'll be able to deal with Gugu. There aren't many people that you can't deal with. There are actually a lot of things that I can't deal with, Tongning sighed. After all, she was still made of flesh and blood, so there was a limit to what she could do. Lu Che, get someone to keep an eye on Baijun. I'm afraid he might do something stupid again. Yes, madam. Chapter 11:20. That night, Mo Ting returned home. After hearing about the cold treatment Tongning received at the hospital, he comforted her. Take it slow. After all, he's a hopeless person. It's hard to pull him back. If he wants to think, you can't stop him. You should meet him sooner. That way his talent won't be buried. After hearing this, Mo Ting stretched out his hand and grabbed onto Tongning's chin as he asked seductively, Who do you think you should meet sooner? Tongning was a little surprised before she realized that Mo Ting's vinegar jar had been knocked over. President Mo, you can't be that petty, right? What do you think? Tongning did not respond. She simply moved her hand from his waist to Mo Ting's upper body and ran her fingers across his muscular chest. Are you still angry? Not sincere enough. Mo Ting commented in a low voice before he carried Tongning into the kitchen. Why aren't we going to the bedroom? Tongning exclaimed as she was placed on the sink. The bedroom is too far away. Don't you think? They were already an old couple, so there was no need to be shy. Of course, to prevent the two little devils from entering the kitchen, Mo Ting locked the door from the inside. In order to not let out any sounds, Tongning controlled herself. She had no choice but to comply with this man. Even though he had asked for it countless times, she was still willing. Afterwards, it was already late at night. After their passionate session, Tongning fell asleep in Mo Ting's arms. Mo Ting carried his beloved wife back to the bedroom in satisfaction. He then headed into the bathroom to help her freshen up before placing her on the bed and letting her sleep. Afterwards, he tidied himself up and headed downstairs to take care of the three kids to make sure they weren't mischievous. But, just as he was about to go to bed, he noticed a missed call on Tongning's phone. Seeing it was Lu Che, Mo Ting quietly replied, What's up? President, the madam told me to keep an eye on Baijun. I never expected that he would actually slit his wrist again in the middle of the night. He's currently being treated. Which hospital are you at right now? Mo Ting asked. Beijing Hospital. Make sure you keep it a secret. I'll be right there. Perhaps, Baijun thought it was ridiculous that Tongning went to look for Baijun. After all, he admired art. In other words, deep down, he would never accept that a woman could save him and give him a new opportunity. But if it was a man, perhaps things would be different. So, after lowering his head to kiss Tongning, Mo Ting changed his clothes and left the house. As usual, he was dressed in a retro striped suit. He looked dignified and tall. After Mo Ting arrived at the hospital, Lu Che immediately brought him to Baijun's room. He had just been rescued. As soon as he saw Mo Ting enter, he sneered, Another one. This time, the person that's coming is even more extraordinary. Mo Ting did not say a word. He simply walked over to the window and said to Baijun, Your daughter wouldn't want you to do this. How would President Mo know? Because I also have a daughter. Mo Ting replied. I'm just curious. It's the middle of the night. Why aren't you resting with your wife at home? Why did you come to my ward? She's indeed asleep, but I received a phone call saying that you tried to commit suicide again. So, I decided to come and have a look. From what I can remember, you are the first man that has lived like a sissy, Mo Ting commented. If you continue to seek death, I won't stop you. But you can find a quiet place and slowly enjoy the feeling of death. Just don't let my wife see it. Otherwise, she will continue to save you. Did you think that your cynicism would allow you to leave behind a legacy? But in reality, no one in this world will remember you. You can die in peace. In the end, no one will even claim your corpse. After hearing Ting's words, Bai Junyi laughed. I've realized that the two of you are quite interesting. One wants me to live, while the other wants me to die. I simply don't want her to waste her energy on someone that's about to die. In that case, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to die. Bai Junyi said angrily. Tongning's going to look for a director, right? I'm going to be her director and snatch her over. Do you want me to die even more? As a director, you're not bad. But my wife is straight and doesn't like women. Especially not sissy women. After saying this, Ting left the room. Bai Junyi wanted to say a few more words, but Ting did not give him the chance. As a man, Ting's lifestyle was probably the envy of all men. He had turned himself into the king of the entertainment industry, so the fact that Bai Junyi was able to talk to him like that was quite a good feeling. Plus, according to Ting, Tongning must have sent people to keep an eye on him to prevent him from committing suicide. In order to find a director, Tongning was willing to disregard the consequences. But he was someone that sold his art. It would be strange if he was interested in sci-fi. Plus, there were so many popular and reputable directors in the industry. Why didn't Tongning choose any of them over a poor young man like him? This taste could be considered to be very tricky. But no matter what, it was quite interesting to tease the couple. It was scary. His life only had this little bit of fun. But as long as he was alive, he still had a pile of debts waiting to be paid. Thinking of this, he wanted to die again. Tongning had no idea that Ting had also seen Bai Junyi. The next morning, after preparing breakfast for the family, she returned to the bedroom to find Ting still asleep. She was quite confused. He was usually very disciplined, so why hadn't he woken up yet? She thought Ting was sick, but he was simply too tired from the night before. Plus, he was already awake. I thought you had a cold again, so I was about to check your temperature. Ting sat up and shook his head. Give Lu Che a phone call first. Ting sat up and shook his head. Let's give Lu Che a call first and postpone the video conference. Okay, hurry and wash up. Tongning picked up Ting's phone. Just as she was about to give Lu Che a phone call, she suddenly heard cries coming from downstairs. Tongning quickly ran downstairs, only to find the two brothers lying on the ground with Zishi on top of Zichen. Both of them were in pain from the fall. Zishi burst into tears, while his younger brother did not make a sound. But, because Zichen was lying on his side, his left cheekbone was left with a bloody cut. Tongning was so frightened that she immediately yelled upstairs. Hurry, Zichen's injured. As soon as Ting heard this, he immediately rushed his son to the hospital. Luckily, the cut wasn't deep. But even so, he still needed a few stitches. It was possible that it would leave a permanent scar on Zichen's face. It's all my fault. Despite all the precautions I took, I still couldn't completely eliminate the danger. Tongning blamed herself as she looked at her son's injured face. You're already careful enough. Ting comforted. Perhaps, no one would have known that this incident had nothing to do with Zichen. Zichen simply laid down when he saw Zishi fall backwards, allowing his brother to fall on top of him. Chapter 11:21. But Zichen's injury wasn't as simple as Tongning thought. Soon, his left eye began to fill with blood. So, Tongning had no choice but to call the doctor for a second examination. A foreign object has entered the baby's eye and caused damage to his retina. If the situation worsens, he may lose his vision in his left eye. So, he may need to receive treatment for a while. He's still so young. Tongning was stunned by the doctor's words. Mrs. Since you've encountered him, you can only relax and let him receive treatment, the pediatrician comforted. Tongning turned around and looked at Ting anxiously. Everything was fine at first. How did this happen all of a sudden? He's still so young. If I had taken good care of him, this wouldn't have happened. Mo Ting could sense Tongning's anxiety, so he quickly patted her on the back and comforted, Zichen will be fine. Look at him, he hasn't cried a single time. That's right. It's strange. If a normal child was injured this badly, they would have burst into tears by now. Yet, he hasn't cried or thrown a tantrum. The doctor looked at Mo Zichen with a confused expression. He doesn't look like he's particularly sensitive to pain. But, because Mo Zichen didn't cry or throw a tantrum, Tongning's heart tightened even more. It's all my fault. I can't even take care of him properly. Seeing Tongning blaming herself, Mo Ting suddenly felt a sense of regret. Perhaps he shouldn't have wanted a child. He was well aware of Tongning's personality. She viewed him and the child as more important than her own life. So, she placed all the blame on herself for Zichen's injury. Moreover, she was really frightened, wasn't she? With this thought, Mo Ting gave Bai Lihua and Xia Yuling a phone call. Mom, Zichen has suffered a minor injury. Can you take him to the Tang family home and take care of him? What happened? Xia Yuling asked curiously. What injury? Is it serious? Just come and pick him up. Okay, let's head to the hospital right away. As soon as Xia Yuling heard that her grandson had been injured, she was so anxious that she forgot about her work and picked up Bai Lihua as the two in-laws arrived at the hospital. Mom, why are you here? Seeing this, Tongning immediately stood up from her chair to greet her parents. What are you talking about? One of my friends saw you at the hospital and said that Zichen was injured, so of course we rushed over. Xia Yuling looked at Tongning in a slightly blaming manner. Since Lihua and I have a lot of time on our hands, we will take care of Zichen. Zishi will come with us too. Just keep an eye on Yan Er. Mom, what? Are you looking down on us? Xia Yuling pretended to be strong. You just need to visit your son every week. It's decided. Xiao Ning, don't blame your mother for being stubborn. But she is truly thinking for your sake. Look at yourself, Zichen is still a child, it's normal for him to get hurt. Yet look at yourself. Zichen is still a child, so it's normal for him to get hurt. Yet why are you so worried? You place too much importance on the child and Mo Ting. If you have time, you should think more about yourself. Brother Zichen will take care of him. Don't worry. When they are a little older, you can take them back and take care of them. That way, we won't have to run back and forth every day. You take good care of Yen. Daughters are closer to their mothers. Mom, that's settled then. Don't worry, Mom can guarantee that Zichen's eyes will return to normal. Tongning didn't have much room to refute. She simply looked at Mo Ting helplessly. Mo Ting stretched out his hand and patted her on the head like he was trying to give her some strength. Trust me. Okay then, after temporarily taking the children away and not seeing them, Tongning wouldn't feel so guilty. If Tongning didn't feel guilty, then he wouldn't feel heartache. Seeing the helpless look on Tongning's face, his heart felt like it was being stabbed by needles. Sometimes, when a person's love seeped deep into their bones, they could affect everything. This was all because the influence they had on each other was simply too shocking. It didn't take long before Zichen received his first treatment. His eyes were covered with bandages, but he did not cry or make a fuss. It was like nothing had happened. Afterwards, Bai Lihua and Xia Yuling picked up the two children and left for Mo Ting to comfort Tongning. No matter how strong Tongning was to the outside world, she was still a mother. After returning home, Tongning stared at her two sons' beds in a daze. Could it be that someone as stubborn as her couldn't even take care of her children? Look at yourself right now. How can you keep your children company? You're feeling guilty towards Zichen, so you're going to ignore your concern for Zishi. As time goes by, the two kids will feel that you're being unfair. So, let Mom take the kids away. They won't mistreat us. Tongning turned around and hugged Mo Ting. I know you asked Mom to take the kids away. Mo Ting froze. I also know that you're afraid that I'll feel guilty. I don't know what's wrong with me, but when it comes to you and the kids, I can't control my worry. You must be feeling bad too. The more I feel guilty, the more you blame yourself. You can't let me be like this. I know you've been through a lot and you're feeling worse than me, but you've never said anything. I'm used to it, Mo Ting comforted. You're too tense. It's fine, Zichen will get better. Trust me, okay? At this moment, Tongning suddenly found the courage to peek out from Mo Ting's embrace and say, "I'm fine now." "You're pretending to be strong, silly woman." Mo Ting couldn't do anything to her. To distract her, Mo Ting woke up the sleeping yin heir and handed it to Tongning to seduce. He wanted her to regain her confidence as a mother. Afterwards, he stayed up all night to edit the script for The Ant Queen tuned one last time and handed it to Tongning the next morning. "Have a look." Before Tongning had time to feel sad, she saw the complete script of The Ant Queen 2. Afterwards, Mo Ting returned to the office. But as soon as he arrived, he fell asleep on his desk. As soon as Lu Che walked in and saw Mo Ting sleeping, he did not continue to disturb him. Instead, he gently closed the door behind him and told the staff not to enter. Who else could make Mo Ting work so hard? There was only one Tongning in this world. Afterwards, Lu Che gave Tongning a phone call to check on Mo Ting. "Madam, did the president stay up all night?" "What's wrong?" "He slept in his office the entire day. I didn't dare to disturb him." Tongning looked at the script in her hands and finally realized what Mo Ting had done for her. Chapter 11:22. That night, Mo Ting woke up in one of Hai Rui's waiting rooms to find Tongning sitting at the head of the bed. She smiled at him. "You're awake?" "I didn't. I asked Lu Che to carry you onto the bed." "Even so, you didn't wake up." Tongning laughed bitterly as she waved the script in her hands. Tongning gave a bitter laugh as she shook the script in her hand. "Because of this, you didn't sleep at all. It's not as exaggerated as you make it sound." "How was it? Have you finished reading it?" Mo Ting tried to divert Tongning's attention. "It's because you said you wanted to add Senior Long and it's going to be a teacher-student story. This script isn't as important as you. Don't suffer like this for me in the future. If you can't handle it anymore and get tired because of this, what do you expect me to do?" "I won't," Mo Ting assured as he hugged her. "I won't ever." Tongning did not continue to pester him. She simply returned home with Mo Ting and they cooked dinner together. After taking care of their daughter, they curled up on the sofa and began to discuss the plot of The Ant Queen 2. "I think your script is already complete. But you still need to add a few more things." "The what?" "Add an antagonist. What do you think about playing the antagonist this time? I'm sure you'll look very sexy as the antagonist," Tongning said. After hearing this, Mo Ting felt a little doting and helpless. Didn't they agree that he wouldn't be taking part in the second film? From the looks of it, he had fallen into another trap. But the main problem was that they hadn't successfully invited a new director yet. Speaking of Bai Jun, Tongning wasn't sure what his current situation was. The couple discussed a few details before Tongning gave Xia Yuling a phone call to check on Zichen. Of course, the two mothers took good care of him. Tongning returned to Bai Junyi's hospital the next day. But when she arrived, Bai Junyi was already packing his luggage to be discharged. "Have you thought it through?" "Life is but a drop in the ocean," Bai Junyi replied. "Thank you for helping me pay off my loan. I will find a way to pay you back." "Are you still not planning to sign a contract with me?" "The script is out and everything is ready. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to you. Perhaps you asked me to film a film to make the creditor think that Tongning was interested in me and that I might be of some use. So, he promised me that if I could film a good sci-fi film for him, he would let bygones be bygones. What do you think?" Tongning was suddenly speechless as she looked at Bai Jun. "Since all of you think I can do it, I'll give it a try. Who knows, I might really become famous and surpass you." After speaking, Bai Junyi put his luggage on his back and whispered in her ear, "I hope you find a director that you're satisfied with." Just like that, Tongning watched as Bai Junyi left. She couldn't do anything because Bai Junyi was completely unruly. He couldn't be controlled by anyone. Despite her repeated invitations, Bai Junyi was not moved at all. Now that things had come to this, what else could she do? Soon, Spring Fall officially announced that they would be filming the first film in the sci-fi series Parasite. The film would be directed by Bai Junyi and the international superstar Fan Di would be the main lead. As soon as the announcement was made, it immediately attracted the attention of the film industry. Tang Ning's success with the Ant Queen made everyone realize that Beijing's sci-fi industry was still a blank slate. Spring-Fall wasn't fooling around either. From the screenwriter to the actors, they went through a strict selection process before they finally made the decision. This meant that the sci-fi industry was about to enter a new era. However, according to rumors online, Tang Ning had previously invited Bai Juni to direct The Ant Queen 2, but he chose to direct Parasite instead. This confused the public. Wasn't The Ant Queen more attractive? This Bai Juni doesn't know how to appreciate your kindness. I can't believe you treated him so well, and even President Mo went to look for him. What a waste. Long Jie was furious after hearing about this. Is there something wrong with this man's brain? He owes the other party a debt, so it's only natural for him to repay it this way, Tang Ning replied. Besides, it was his personal choice. He didn't do anything wrong. How could you speak up for him? I'm not speaking up for him. This Bai Juni is definitely not an unscrupulous person. But there's no suitable director right now. What are you going to do? Why don't you do it yourself? After hearing Long Jie's excited suggestion, Tang Ning shook her head. Although I've been learning from Jones for a few months, I'm still a newbie. Before this, I didn't even have any work to my name. You didn't act before you became an actress either, did you? What else could you do? You don't think anyone else is suitable? Now that sci-fi films were starting to gain competition, it was good for the industry as a whole. As long as it was a good film, it didn't matter if it was a healthy competition. Plus, making Tang Ning feel threatened was also a form of motivation. Let me think about it a little more. The quality of the director determined the success or failure of a film. Thinking of this, Tang Ning wished that Xiao Sen was still alive. How great would that be? How excited would he be to see that there was competition? The sci-fi that he loved was now being valued by the public. After hearing that Bai Juni had been snatched away, Mo Ting comforted Tang Ning, it's not that bad. You still have a lot of options. I know that the top directors in the country are all great in their own ways. It's not that I don't think they're capable, I simply feel that every director has something that they're good at. If they can't film the film that they're good at, it would be a waste of their talent. Look at Xiao Sr. Take your time and you'll eventually find a suitable one. In reality, Mo Ting's desk already had plenty of information on directors. But, because of the slump in the Chinese sci-fi industry, not many directors had experience in this area. So, the reason why Tang Ning chose Bai Juni was because he had a wildness to his films. This was something that Tang Ning liked and no one else had. But the director had already been signed. Even though he was the big boss of the entertainment industry, he couldn't break the rules of the industry. So, with Bai Juni joining the competition, Tang Ning felt a lot of pressure. The Ant Queen 1 foot had Xiao Senator, but, without him, Tang Ning was like a bird without wings. Although the audience acknowledged Nzaheo's abilities in the second half of The Ant Queen 2, he still needed to put in a lot of effort. Could The Ant Queen 2 continue to be as exciting as The Ant Queen 2? This was the question that everyone was most concerned about. How could Tang Ning overcome her own limitations? Chapter 11:23. Parasite boasted that it had a bigger cast than The Ant Queen. It had a huge investment, famous actors, a famous screenwriter, and a luxurious production. Coupled with a strong promotional campaign, it also showed its sincerity in Beijing. From the looks of it, The Ant Queen was indeed aiming to surpass The Ant Queen. So, it received a lot of attention from film fans. Back when Tang Ning and Xiao Sen first produced The Ant Queen, the conditions were difficult to begin with. It wasn't easy for sci-fi films to rise to prominence, but now, they couldn't strike while the iron was hot and continue the popularity of The Ant Queen. All they could do was watch as others took advantage of the situation. Tang Ning lost Xiao Sen, and this was a regret that she couldn't make up for. As a result, the development of The Ant Queen 2 became a lot more limited. She had all kinds of actors and directors to choose from. But Tang Ning refused to settle for anything else. Afterwards, Bai Juni sent someone over to deliver the money he owed Tang Ning. At the same time, he gave her a piece of advice. The person in charge of Spring Fall seems to have something to do with Hai Rui. Be careful. Consider this a favor. What Bai Juni was trying to say was that Spring Fall was targeting Hai Rui. It was as if they were trying to take over. Tongning relayed Bai Juni's words to Mo Ting and asked if he remembered something like this. After hearing this, Mo Ting immediately picked up the intercom on his desk. Come in, Lu Chang. President, what are your orders? Go investigate Springfall's background and find out who it used to be. Mo Ting instructed. Okay, I'll get to it right away, Lu Che said as he left the office. As for finding a director, there's no need to rush. Back then, the Ant Queen was made because it was an emergency. But now, we have the power to speak, so we don't need to panic just because someone announces something. The growth of sci-fi films is a good thing for the industry, Mo Ting said calmly. There's no rush. You can take your time to find a suitable candidate. Do you have time to visit your son at the Tang family home? Okay, Mo Ting nodded. Tongning wasn't in a rush to film The Ant Queen 2. But before she confirmed the meaning behind Bai Juni's words, she was a little worried. What she didn't notice was that the production crew of Parasite had already contacted the Glory team. The post-production team that Tongning had personally trained in the past had contributed immeasurably to The Ant Queen. But people always wanted to climb higher. As long as the conditions were good enough, they would choose to jump ship. If they followed the procedures, there was nothing Tongning could do. Worst of all, Tongning found out about this from Long Jie. Spring Fall contacted the entire Glory team and offered a sky-high price. They were willing to provide the best post-production for Parasite. Tongning immediately contacted the person in charge of the team. Back when they were in the US, they had fought together despite the difficulties. But now, for the sake of their own interests, they were willing to betray her and Xiaoxin. However, the team were too ashamed to face Tongning again. So, they generously handed over their compensation and turned to leave. As soon as the news was released, it immediately caused an uproar. After all, the public was equally surprised by the amount of effort Tongning had put in to create this team. Above all, Tongning was considered a towering green. Why did these birds choose another tree? Job hopping was common in every industry. Everyone in the industry moved around. But Tongning didn't have a director or a post-production team. How was she going to produce The Ant Queen 2? The Glory team publicly thanked Tongning for training them. Wasn't this the same as rubbing salt into Tongning's wounds? As soon as Long Jie heard about this, she almost burst into tears. But Tongning remained calm. Aren't you angry? What's done is done. What's the point of being angry? Tongning asked. Of course not. Since you've managed to train Glory, you can also train a new team. Since the Ant Queen is already dead, let's put our lives on the line, Mo Ting said as he entered the living room after returning home. We didn't get to this point because we lacked resources. It's just hard to accept being betrayed like this, Long Jie explained. Everyone has their own choices, and everyone has to pay the price for their choices. After speaking, Tongning went upstairs to get changed and took Long Jie home. Afterwards, she and Mo Ting headed to the Tang family home to see their son. I have a suggestion, Tongning said on the way to the Tang family home. I also have a suggestion, but you go first, Mo Ting replied. If the entire Glory team jumps ship, we need to find a replacement. No, not a replacement, a new team. My idea is, we don't need a professional in post-production, we need a computer genius. As you know, there have been a few child prodigies in the past. Although they aren't easy to control, if they jump out of the box, we might be able to receive a different surprise, Tongning said calmly. How do we prevent them from jumping ship again? Mo Ting asked. If they want to jump ship, they'll eventually jump ship, Tongning replied in a self-mocking manner. But, trust me, compared to those that come from a professional background, they definitely have a different view towards money. But, trust me, compared to those that come from a professional background, they definitely have a different view towards money. Lu Che just received news that there will be a meet and greet between Glory and Parasite at Dynasty Hotel the day after tomorrow. If you have some time, you should attend and vent your anger. Okay, they're leaving just like that without even saying goodbye. What do they think I am? By the way, what is your suggestion? Actually, Xiao Sen's style can be continued, Ting replied. Someone contacted me this morning and said that if you don't mind, she can come and direct the Ant Queen too. Who? Xiao Sen's daughter, Miss Xiao, Ting replied. Over the years, she's been influenced by Xiao Sen and has already taken Xiao Sen's ideas to heart. Plus, even though she didn't study directing, she's a great photographer and has shot a lot of award-winning short films. Are you willing to trust her? Of course. Tongning's tears almost rolled out of her eyes. She felt like Xiao Sen had come back to life. In that case, you should meet up as soon as possible. This is probably the best news I've received so far, Tongning suddenly said excitedly. Look at you. Although there were a lot of twists and turns, God always made up for it. As long as she didn't give up, there was always a chance to turn things around. By the way, has Lu Che found out anything about the previous owner of Springfall? Chapter 11:24. I'm currently investigating, Ting replied simply, but his expression was unfathomable. For Lu Che to spend so much time investigating, it was obvious how difficult the matter was. In that case, we need to be careful. After the couple returned to the Tang family home, they met up with little, one-eyed Zichin. Sandwiched amongst a group of relatives, his eyebrows were furrowed and he looked exactly like an old man. He did not have the pampering aura a child of his age should have. On the other hand, Zishi and Tang Xian's daughter were having a lot of fun. Meanwhile, Zishi was hiding in one corner with an expression that told the whole world to ignore him. It seemed he did not care about the adults teasing. You're here. Elder Tang looked at the couple happily. Now that he was retired, he enjoyed playing with his grandchildren and living a carefree and relaxed life. These two little devils didn't bring you any trouble, did they? I was afraid that you would take them away. Elder Tang loved his two grandchildren to the bone, especially Zichin. He was so young, yet he did not cry or make a fuss. It was like he had the thoughts of an adult. It was very interesting. That's good, Tongning looked at her two sons. Even though she was their mother, she still couldn't hug her own sons. There were so many people in the house. Even if everyone waited for a few minutes, it would still take half an hour before it was her turn. She couldn't help but feel a little jealous. I've seen quite a bit of news about you on the entertainment news. Are you okay? Elder Tang took the opportunity to ask Tongning during dinner. Seeing that they did not respond, he laughed. Perhaps it's because I'm getting old and have become used to breaking and reuniting. So, I've become immune to job hopping amongst the young. There's bound to be separation between people, not to mention a partnership based on money. Even if you and Ting love each other, you will eventually leave this world one after another. So, do what you need to do. Don't get angry over irrelevant people and small matters. Understand? Yes, I understand, grandfather, Tongning replied. It's not a big deal that can be resolved. I know how capable my granddaughter and grandson-in-law are. You should all know that the Tang family will always have your back. Of course, I also hope that you will never need to use it. It meant there was nothing that Tongning and Ting couldn't solve. Thank you very much, Grandpa. Jingxian has worked hard. Even the foreigners are full of praise for his new perfume. The Tang family's business is getting better and better. This is all because of you young people. For some reason, Elder Tang was more talkative than usual that night. Ever since she was young, Tongning had never experienced the love of a grandfather. Tonight she finally felt that she had a great grandfather. Sis, lend me your nephew to play with for a couple of days. I want Qingyan to learn how to take care of the kids. Tang Jingxian truly loved the twins. My child is not a toy. That night, the Tang family was filled with laughter. But Zichin still had a serious expression on his face. All that was missing was a grunt. This kind of little Meng Bao, of course, won the love of the whole family. With Elder Tang's encouragement, Tongning seemed to gain more energy. This was the strength of her family. After I prepare the information, I will go look for Miss Qiao on the island. I'm confident that we can do even better. This was one of the strengths of Tongning that Ting loved the most. Because, no matter what she did and no matter what difficulties she faced, she would never give up. No matter how difficult it was, she would persevere. 2 days later, the crew of Parasite met up with the post-production team at Dynasty Hotel. Faced with the team that had jumped ship from Tongning's side, the crew naturally cheered. "You guys are amazing. The post-production team of The Ant Queen is the best out of all the domestically produced sci-fi films. You guys aren't bad." "I know, right? You guys jumped ship from Tongning's side. You have a temper. Tongning is just a woman. What can she possibly do?" The Ant Queen was all a stroke of luck. If she wants to do something big, she should choose to do it in a place with a lot of men. Don't you agree? I agree. The entire Glory team were flushed with anger from the ridicule of the crew. But Baijuni sat in the crowd without saying a word. Occasionally, he would even let out a laugh. Betrayal was betrayal. What was there to praise? At this time, a waiter suddenly entered the VIP room and said, "Gentlemen, someone has already paid for your bill tonight. So, if you need anything else, feel free to let us know." "Who is it? That nice?" The scriptwriter of Parasite turned and asked the waitress. "Invite her out so we can thank her in person." "I'll go invite her out right now. Please wait a moment." "Who could be so generous? Is it the boss?" Everyone whispered amongst themselves. Soon, the door was pushed open by a waiter and Tongning, dressed in a white suit, stepped into the room. As soon as everyone saw her, they were shocked. Especially the people from Glory. They immediately lowered their heads, too afraid to look at her. "I was wondering who it was. So, it's our superstar Tang. When my team left, they didn't even say a word. So, I've come to send them off today," Tongning said with a smile. "Consider it a token of my appreciation as the previous boss." "Miss Tang, you're too polite," the editor continued to laugh. In reality, the alcohol had kicked in. "Since we've gone through thick and thin together, I would like to propose a toast to everyone from Glory. I wish you all the best in the future." After speaking, Tongning grabbed a glass of champagne from the waiter and downed 3 glasses in a row. Of course, now that you've arrived at Springfall, don't jump ship. After all, you've already joined a big agency in the country. Where else can you jump ship to? When I left the agency, I didn't even have time to pack my belongings, so I've packed them up for everyone. After all, Glory doesn't keep trash. "Miss Tang, are you purposely trying to be sarcastic?" the scriptwriter of Parasite asked angrily. "Everyone, I think I've already done my best. After all, I didn't hand this matter over to the courts. If I were to use force, I'm afraid Parasite would have to wait 3 years before it sees the light of day again. All I have to do is return the compensation fee, refuse to pay any compensation, and ask the courts to mediate, and they will forever be part of Glory. Leaving is just a matter of lifting my butt, but the price has to be paid." Tongning laughed. "Of course, I don't want to keep trash around. After all, I still have a relationship with them. As long as they abide by their responsibilities, I won't take them to the courts. I hope everyone knows what to do. If you continue to be unjust, you'll be doomed." Chapter 11:25. To put it simply, Tongning's contract with Glory hadn't been terminated yet. So, wasn't Parasite a little too hasty in using these people? Even if they wanted to poach people, they should at least wipe their asses clean before leaving. Yet, they were acting so high profile right now. Who are they looking down on? "This meal is on me. Have a good time and enjoy yourselves. Consider it a small token of my appreciation. I won't say much else. But, I don't think the crew of Parasite should celebrate too early. After all, who knows if my fate will be the same as yours in the future." After saying this, Tongning smiled as she handed her glass to the waiter and turned around in a domineering manner. The people from Glory lowered their heads the entire time because they felt guilty on their conscience. Tongning had spent so much effort on them, yet now, they had all betrayed her. Anyone in her position would be furious, right? "That's enough, let's not spoil the mood because of a woman. Let's continue drinking." During this time, the crew raised their glasses in an attempt to lighten the atmosphere. But, This made the scriptwriter of Parasite place his gaze on the people from Glory with a questioning look. Although I've had a few drinks, I can understand what Tongning is trying to say. In other words, you haven't officially terminated your contract with Tongning and she has no intention of terminating it. So, everything you're doing is illegal, right? That, if Parasite is successfully completed and Tongning goes to court, the film won't be able to be released, right? The people did not respond. This wasn't what they wanted. Who knew that Tongning had a trick up her sleeve? Ha! After hearing this, Baijuni couldn't help but laugh out loud. It's not that the other party had a trick up their sleeves, it's a contract. You guys broke the contract first and took advantage of Chunchio's money. That's why you're asking the other party to be kind to you. Baijuni, whose side are you on? The scriptwriter asked arrogantly. I'm not on anyone's side. If you're so capable, then settle their contract. After speaking, Baijuni stood up from his chair and left the boring meal. He never expected that Tongning would be the one to cause trouble. Although there was no way to change the fact that parasites had been created, she still wanted Springfall's staff to suffer along with her. Not long after, this incident was reported on the internet and newspapers by the reporters. If one were to say that Tongning was taking revenge, it wouldn't be considered as revenge. As the previous boss, it was obviously a decent thing for her to treat them to a farewell party. But, for some reason, the audience felt that Tongning was too ruthless. Firstly, it was to vent his anger. Secondly, it was to remind the production team of Parasite not to be so arrogant. Thirdly, it was to curb the development of the Glory team. If you do this, don't blame me for doing the same. If poaching someone from Hyrule was that easy, then was there still a need for rules in the industry? Isn't Tongning's slap a little too beautiful? Not only did he discuss the team from Parasite, he also displayed his magnanimity and disdain towards the Glory team. If it was just a business relationship, it wouldn't be a big deal if the team jumped ship. But Tongning was the one that brought the Glory team up, so it's understandable that she's angry. You're all focused on post-production, but I'm focused on whether the Ant Queen 2 will never see each other again. But, after doing what she did, Tongning did not just sit around. She took all the resources she had for the Ant Queen 2 and headed to Private Island to look for Xiao Sen's daughter. I found a lot of sci-fi films in my father's study room. Let's go through them and see if they'll be of any use to the Ant Queen 2. I've already looked through the script and the story is perfect. With the addition of a martial arts superstar, the foreigners will definitely be impressed. But what do you plan to do with post-production? Miss Chiao asked as she put down the documents in her hands. Now that Parasite has caused so much trouble for you, how do you plan to deal with it? I've already dealt with the team that was poached by Springfall. So, they're a little hesitant to take action. As long as they're afraid, that's all that matters. I'm currently searching for some prodigies online. I think we might be able to make use of them. Are you saying that we're not looking for professional post-production experts, but computer geniuses? Miss Chiao asked curiously. Of course, there are other requirements as well. For example, we need people who are good at video games or experienced programmers. That way, they'll be able to get into character faster. After all, money isn't the most important thing to them. They love a challenge and excitement. So, let's first help us solve the problem with the Ant Queen 2. Then, we'll talk about everything else in the future. Because of the betrayal of the Glory team, Tongning no longer had any plans for the long term. At least, that was how she felt about the Ant Queen. She was going to deal with the Ant Queen 2 first and reconsider when it came time for the Ant Queen 3. When that time came, there might be a new talent waiting to be discovered. Okay, let's focus on the Ant Queen 2 for now. But, I need 3 months, Miss Chow requested. Although cinematography and directing are both related to filming and have some similarities, I still need to learn. Don't worry, I can give you 3 months. Tongning knew that Miss Chow didn't know how to direct a film, but she trusted that Miss Chow had the heart to make a sci-fi film. Just like Xiao Sen, her heart was burning with passion. So, Tongning was willing to trust her. Not long after, Tongning announced that she was forming a new team, Starlight, and was openly recruiting post-production experts. The first person to find her was a 20-year-old young man. He had just entered university, but because he had played video games since he was a child, he had learned to create a lot of scenes. However, he had never released any of them to the public because his parents didn't support it. But when he heard that Tongning was looking for talented people, he decided to give it a try and fulfill his dream. After seeing the young man's work, Tongning immediately decided to keep him. The public questioned, "Aren't you afraid that Starlight will end up like Glory? Moreover, how can these amateurs surpass professionals?" In response to the public's comments, Tongning responded, "Although Glory is talented, they can't deny my nurturing. So, it's not an exaggeration to say that if I can create Glory, then I can create another Starshine." Chapter 11:26. As for what I'm not an amateur, I'm the most amateur of them all. What Tongning meant was that professionals weren't necessarily good enough and amateurs couldn't compare to professionals. There were plenty of experts amongst the public, but they simply didn't want to show off. Most importantly, she used herself as an example. Whether it was an actress, manager, or producer, she had always been an amateur. But what was the result? Everyone was clear to see. After hearing Tongning's response, the reporters were left speechless. After all, no one was more convincing than Tongning herself. So, did the public need to worry about how she was going to develop the Ant Queen too? There was no need. After all, no matter who suppressed her, Tongning always found a way to survive. Not long after, international martial arts superstar Old Long accepted Tongning's invitation to join the Ant Queen too. This caused a lot of fans to be excited. After all, the fact that Tongning was able to convince this man to join her was quite impressive. Parasites had a famous actor, but the Ant Queen too wasn't bad either. It even managed to hire an international martial arts superstar. As soon as the netizens saw this news, the internet exploded. "It's been years since I've seen Old Long act cool. Martial arts against a mutated monster, this is going to be fun. I wonder what the Ant Queen 2's story is going to be like. I can't wait." Tongning was used to turning the tables around. It had already become a part of her daily life. Of course, competition was bound to boost the development of the sci-fi industry. But Springfall was the one that played dirty in the first place, so Tongning had no choice but to put a stop to it. However, Lu Che spent a lot of time investigating the previous owner of Springfall. "How complicated could it be for you to spend an entire week on it?" Mo Ting expressed his dissatisfaction at Lu Che's progress. Lu Che was a little surprised before he handed over the documents in his hands. "I'm sorry, President, it took me quite a bit of time. Springfall was established 16 years ago. It's also a well-known company. Get to the point, I already know all this. The most important thing is, this agency was established by a subordinate of the Nangong family. As you know, 22 years ago, the Nangong family was a powerful and complicated family in Beijing. It was the old Xiao that sent Elder Nangong to prison. 6 years later, Qiu Jin, a subordinate of the Nangong family, established Springfall and has been biding his time. Recently, rumor has it that the eldest grandson of the Nangong family, Nangong Quan, is returning from the US to take over Springfall. Nangong Quan? Mo Ting had a slight impression of this person. He was around 5 years older than Mo Ting. When he was just 10 years old, he was already a violent thug. Apparently, he committed a crime in the US and was sent to prison. Who would have thought his sentence was already over? He was called a nouveau riche. It has been 3 years since he was released from prison. He set up a technology company in the United States and had a woman. However, that woman gave birth to a daughter for him, but she died in childbirth. Since then, he has not found another woman. President, this is the hidden message that Bai Junyi gave us. After hearing this, Mo Ting's expression turned a little complicated. He's already back in Beijing? He announced to the public that he's still a few days away. But I think he's already back in Beijing, Lu Che replied. Arrange another bodyguard for Tongning to protect her. Since he's here to seek revenge, there's nothing we can do but welcome him with open arms, Mo Ting said coldly. 20 years ago, the old man was able to send him to prison. 20 years later, I can do the same. Hey, President. Indeed, as Lu Che predicted, Nangong Quan did return to Beijing early. In fact, he even watched a few interesting scenes unfold in secret. For example, when Tang Ning caused trouble at Dynasty Hotel. This strong and muscular man with embroidered arms was extremely interested in Tang Ning. How could she counterattack so beautifully? Daddy, I'm sleepy, Nangong Quan's daughter said as she rubbed her eyes. Beside him, Nangong Quan's daughter rubbed her eyes and said, Can I sleep now? Nangong Quan carried his daughter in his arms, helped her wash up and coaxed her to sleep. When he first met Mo Ting when he was younger, he simply thought the little boy was smart and serious. Who would have thought 22 years later he would end up marrying a wife like this? Daddy, I miss mommy. Can I find you a new mommy? Nangong Quan asked. She will definitely treat little eggshell well. In that case, hurry up and find one for me. The extremely strong man sat by his daughter's bedside with a gentle expression. He was now the only person left in the Nangong family. Back when Elder Nangong was sent to prison, the entire Nangong family gave up everything they had in exchange for his freedom. And Elder Mo played a huge role in this. It had been a few decades. Perhaps he was getting old, so it was time to end some things early. Was he going to leave this generation's hatred for his daughter? So, the Mo family could only suffer. After coaxing his daughter to sleep, Nangong Quan continued to investigate Mo Ting's family situation. He found out that Mo Ting had 3 children. In fact, he had a pair of twins and was currently in foster care at his mother-in-law's home. What a great opportunity. Of course, Mo Ting already smelled danger ahead of time. So, whether it was the Mo family or the Tang family, he increased his security. Tang Ning didn't understand, so she asked Mo Ting. Only then did she find out what happened between the Mo family and the Nangong family. Grandfather didn't do anything wrong, Tang Ning replied. If I was in his position, I would have done the same thing and I wouldn't have regretted it. Of course, the old man didn't do anything wrong. But Elder Nangong's imprisonment caused the Nangong family to pay a heavy price. Nangong Quan's father was blackmailed, his mother was humiliated and his uncles didn't end up well either, Mo Ting explained. So, I'm afraid Nangong Quan has returned to settle things. Have you guys met before? Yes. If it wasn't for the Nangong family, we might still be good friends, Mo Ting said as he hugged Tang Ning. Nangong Quan has always been a man of few words, but he has always been a ruthless character. He rarely talks, he always makes his move. I still don't think grandfather owes the Nangong family anything, but Nangong Quan does. This was the crux of the problem. When it came to hatred, no matter how many years had passed, as long as it remained in one's heart, it would eventually be unleashed. Then what does he want? Perhaps only Nangong Quan could answer her. Chapter 1127. Back in the day, the Nangong family had an extraordinary influence in Beijing. But they often wandered in the gray area. Because of this, an actress that Elder Mo was familiar with was implicated and ended up losing her life. As a result, Elder Mo cooperated with the police and captured the Nangong family in one fell swoop. He even provided strong evidence and sent Elder Mo to prison. Following the decline of the Nangong family, the entire entertainment industry and Beijing rarely mentioned them. But with Nangong Quan's return, it was time to bring up the matter again. Nangong Quan's return was to make the Mo family suffer. Mo Ting wasn't afraid of anything. After all, Elder Mo's actions were not wrong. But his weakness was Tang Ning. Tang Ning could see the worry in Mo Ting's eyes, so she teased, "Is President Mo afraid?" "Get some rest." Mo Ting did not respond. He simply hugged her and lay down on the bed, cuddling her to sleep. Tang Ning wasn't an ordinary woman. Whether it was physically or mentally, she was stronger than other women. This was something that Mo Ting was never worried about. A few days later, Nangong Quan officially held a press conference to announce his identity as the executive chairman of Springfall Film and Television. He also wished Parasite a success. As soon as Tongning saw this man on the entertainment news, she couldn't help but be cautious. She liked to see a person's soul through their eyes. But this man's eyes were filled with a sense of vicissitudes and sharpness. So, his appearance naturally became a hot topic in the industry. It was obvious that he was targeting Hai Rui. It was obvious from the incident with Parasite. After Elder Mo saw the news, he immediately gave Mo Ting a phone call. Did the rascal from the Nangong family cause trouble for you? Didn't you see everything on the news? I'm asking about something else, Elder Mo humphed. The old man harumphed. These little tricks are exactly the same as his grandfather's. They're not worth mentioning at all. They haven't done anything yet, Mo Ting replied. This rascal may be even more powerful than Elder Mo. You guys should be careful. I think you should worry about yourself, Mo Ting said before he hung up the phone. This rascal? Elder Mo humphed before he also hung up the phone. Afterwards, Lu Che knocked on the office door and handed an invitation to Mo Ting. President, it's from Spring Fall Film. Mo Ting received the invitation. After taking a glance at it, he tossed it to the side. Nangong Quan wants to meet? Are you going? Of course I have to go to reminisce about the past. In that case, should we tell the madam about this? Lu Che asked as he glanced at the invitation beside Mo Ting. Mo Ting froze for a moment before nodding his head. Of course. From Mo Ting's point of view, although he was worried about Tongning, he had never treated her like a woman. After all, her ability to think was not inferior to any man. So, he decided to tell her about this so she could be mentally prepared. That night, after returning home, Mo Ting told Tongning about Nangong Quan's invitation and asked, Do you want to come with me? After all, I can only feel at ease with you by my side. At this time, Tongning shook her head. The day after tomorrow, still at noon. Go ahead, I'll stay at home so you don't have to worry. All right. But I still feel like something isn't right. Tongning was a little confused. She felt like there was something she couldn't quite put her finger on. Zichen's return visit is the day after tomorrow, Mo Ting reminded. Yes, Tongning snapped out of her daze. I will send more people the day after tomorrow. Take some bodyguards and follow Mom and Zichen. Okay, Tongning nodded. Tongning gave Xia Yuling a phone call and told her to be on guard. At least, she needed to be aware of danger. Xia Yuling, on the other hand, was a lot more relaxed. I know how to be on guard and I will protect my grandson. But, you guys don't need to be too nervous about this. Things are not the same as 20 years ago. Tongning knew she was making a big deal out of nothing, but who knew what Nangong Quan's bottom line was? After all, they had never fought against each other before. Plus, Nangong Quan was a fierce bandit. 2 days later, Mo Ting and Nangong Quan met again at Dynasty Hotel. Nangong Quan, dressed in a gray suit, welcomed Mo Ting with a smile. Long time no see. Mo Ting removed his suit jacket and sat down opposite Nangong Quan. The two handsome men immediately attracted the attention of the opposite sex in the hotel. President Nangong has arrived with a big group of people. Why didn't your wife come with you? I should have explained the incident with Glory to her, Nangong Quan replied elegantly. Nangong Quan replied politely. My men didn't handle this matter well, so I'm sure sister-in-law is upset. My son went for a follow-up today, so my wife went with him, Mo Ting replied calmly. As for the incident with Glory, although I didn't gain anything, I didn't lose anything either. Beijing has changed a lot since I returned this time. The industry is now your world. Nangong Quan chuckled. President Nangong, did you ask me out to catch up on the old days? Of course I did. After all, the only people I know in Beijing are the Mo family. Now that I'm back with my daughter, it's only right for me to meet up with old friends. Otherwise, my daughter won't be able to find a place to visit. Wouldn't she be lonely during the holidays? The conversation between the two men was simply a way to test each other. It was all psychological warfare. If you have something to say, then say it. After all, I don't think Elder Nangong did anything wrong in the past. Mo Ting took the initiative and said straightforwardly. Mo Ting took the initiative and put it more bluntly, I don't think the Mo family owes you anything. I never said that the Mo family owes me anything. I only asked you out because you are the only person I can talk to. As Fort Parasite, it is a business matter that is handled by professionals, so I can't say that I know everything, Nangong Quan explained. Mo Ting, even if I want to cause trouble for you, I will do it openly. Others may not know, but I know you well. Plus, I have a daughter now. It wasn't easy for me to get to where I am today. I don't want my daughter to lose her father because of a past grudge. Let's meet up more often from now on. I'll make you trust me. Whether Mo Ting trusted him or not, he still needed to be cautious. After all, Nangong Quan wasn't the only one who had the final say in the Nangong family. Back then, the Nangong family had a lot of power and influence. So, when Elder Nangong went to prison, a lot of people were implicated. However, they had been biding their time until now. Now that Nangong Quan was back, they had a new leader. So, how could they not wait for an opportunity to strike? Chapter 11:28. The meal passed peacefully and Mo Zichen's follow-up went smoothly. So, Tongning let out a sigh of relief. Seeing that her son was fine, she finally relaxed. But on the way home, Xia Yuling's car was intercepted by two black cars. At the time, Mo Zichen was sitting in the back. Xia Yuling immediately stopped in her tracks. She was stuck in the alleyway and did not dare to move. A moment later, 4 or 5 thugs jumped out of the car with sticks in their hands. Without waiting for Xia Yuling to say anything, they began to smash the car. Tongning chased after them with her bodyguards. The thugs calmly returned to their car and drove off. Tongning immediately pulled open the car door and helped Xia Yuling out. She then carried Mo Zichen in her arms. Are you all right? I'm fine. I'm not sure if I scared Zichen. I never expected that the Nangong family would resort to such underhanded methods. What kind of society is this? How can they still be so violent? Let's talk at home. Tongning carried Zichen in her arms and escorted Xia Yuling safely back to the Tang family home. I was scared to death. I'm sorry, Mom, Tongning apologized as she comforted Zichen. It's not your fault. But when he thought about it, he couldn't help but feel scared. Not long after, Tongning gave Mo Ting a phone call and told him everything that happened in the alley. After picking up the phone, Mo Ting's expression did not change, but he was obviously not as relaxed as before. I just got a call from my wife. My son was attacked on his way back. Is that so? Hurry back and have a look, Nangong Quan urged. Mo Ting scoffed as he stood up from his seat. From now on, if you want to launch a sneak attack or surround me, it's best if you come after me. Kids can't handle the fear. If something really happens, the Nangong family will disappear from the face of the earth. Fight me fair and square. Only then will I respect you as an opponent. Nangong Quan did not say a word as he watched Mo Ting leave. Afterwards, he made a phone call to the agency. Who told you to get revenge on the Mo family? Young master, Uncle Chiu, we live in a lawful society, not a violent society. Why did you have to do something so despicable? Nangong Quan asked angrily. We'll talk about it when I get back. Nangong Quan may have been cruel in the past, but he now had a daughter and knew how to be gentle. Plus, bullying someone was the lowest form. Even if he won, what glory was there? So, as soon as he returned to the agency, he went to see Chiu Jin. Why didn't you listen to me? Young master, we've endured for so many years, waiting for you to come back, just to find trouble with the Mo family. Have you forgotten the pain the Mo family brought you? I haven't forgotten. But what's the point of scaring Mo Ting's son today? Mo Ting you with of. Mo was of. Young master? If you really want to win against Hai Rui, then help me build a bigger empire than Hai Rui and produce something better than the Ant Queen. Don't even think about using underhanded methods, they won't have any effect on Mo Ting. That's the only way you can truly crush the Mo family. Nangong Quan's voice was a little too loud, so little Eggshell, who was resting outside, immediately pushed open the door and looked at her father. "Daddy, why are you so fierce?" Nangong Quan glared at Chiu Jin before he stood up and walked over to his daughter and picked her up in his arms. "I'm sorry, baby. Daddy will try his best to control himself from now on." If they weren't fighting on the same side, it didn't matter if they won or lost. So, what sense of revenge or victory did they have? Perhaps I'm getting old and I don't understand the thoughts of the young. I've waited all these years for you to come back and take everyone to the Mo family for revenge. But I don't think the young master's heart is on this. You can forget about the death of your family, but I can't. After speaking, Chiu Jin left the office, leaving the father and daughter behind. Of course, Nangong Quan didn't approve of Chiu Jin's actions, but he wouldn't go so far as to tip off his enemies. So, he told someone to keep an eye on Chiu Jin. After all, the Nangong family owed Chiu Jin a favor and he would never forget that. Mo Ting quickly returned home. Seeing that his wife and son were safe, his expression softened. Tang Ning pounced into Mo Ting's arms as Mo Ting patted her on the back. "I'm glad you're okay. Mom was still scared. Let's go, we'll talk about it at home." Mo Ting escorted Tang Ning back to Hyatt Regency. But, from Nangong Quan's reaction, it was obvious that he didn't think the incident this time had anything to do with him. But he still had to be straightforward. Even if Nangong Quan is a criminal, he is a gentleman. Is that a compliment to an enemy? Tang Ning laughed. If he actually competed with you in the business world, it would have been a great show. But, if he was actually aware of what happened, then there's no point talking about him anymore. I told Lu Che to do a deeper investigation on Nangong Quan. Mo Ting replied. He then asked, "Is our son okay?" "He's fine." The little rascal was born with a calm demeanor. I can't do anything about him. If it was Zishi, he would have burst into tears by now. That's good. Meanwhile, Chiu Jin suffered at Nangong Quan's hands, so all he could do was drink in his office. He had endured for so many years, all because he wanted to get revenge on the Mo family and get justice for his family. But, why didn't Nangong Quan have any plans to do so? Was he still a descendant of the Nangong family? "Master Chiu, if the young master doesn't want to make a move, we can make a move on our own. After all, we can't rely on the young master anymore." So, in for a penny, in for a pound. You make it sound so simple. Chiu Jin humphed. Do you think the Mo family are easy to deal with? Even when they smashed up the car today, didn't you hear from the people that came back that Tang Ning followed them the entire time with bodyguards? The Mo family have always been cunning, Chiu Jin's subordinate replied. We need to plan this matter carefully. It won't be easy to deal with them from the front. Let's see if we can find an opportunity in the industry. After all, Tang Ning is still active in the industry. I refuse to believe that she won't be alone one day. Master Chiu is right. As long as we don't let the young master find out when the time comes, everything will be fine. Now that I think about it, Springfall was founded by Master Chiu. The reason he gave it to the young master was because he wanted to use it for revenge. But he actually took it seriously. By the time he overtook Hai Rui, he would be in his 70s or 80s. Wouldn't he be letting his enemy live comfortably until they were old? Chapter 1129. Chiu Jin glared at his subordinate and smashed the glass in his hand. I've already allowed the Mo family to live for so many years. I'm not going to allow them to continue living comfortably. Continue to keep an eye on them. Nangong Quan's daughter, Little Eggshell, was a little over a year older than the twins. But she was a very sensitive girl and was able to accurately express her emotions. This was rare at her age. After all, most children were mischievous at the age of 4 or 5. Little Eggshell seemed to empathize with Nangong Quan and knew that he had something on his mind. So, every day after finishing her homework, she would wait for her father to return home no matter how late it was. That night, Little Eggshell overheard the conversation between her father and Chiu Jin. So, as soon as she returned home, she hugged onto Nangong Quan's leg. "Daddy, Grandfather Chiu made you angry because he wanted to hurt someone, right?" "Eggshell, Daddy, will grandfather Chiu cause other children to lose their mothers? Little Eggshell asked as she lifted her head. No, Nangong Quan patted her on the head. Daddy promises, Daddy won't let grandfather Chiu do anything rash. Children without mothers are very pitiful, Little Eggshell said as she furrowed her brows. All of Nangong Quan's love came from this little angel. She was his motivation to continue living. Don't worry, Daddy won't let other children lose their mothers. So, even though Nangong Quan said that he wouldn't let the Mo family know, when he thought about Chiu Jin's reaction and the Mo family's 3 children, he decided to give Mo Ting a phone call in front of Little Eggshell. I told you earlier today that I won't seek revenge. Even if I have to retaliate, I will defeat you directly. But, Mo Ting, just because I won't, doesn't mean that my grandfather's former subordinates won't. You and your wife better be careful. After hearing Nangong Quan's warning, Mo Ting chuckled. Rather than letting us be careful, you should be more careful. Elder Nangong's former subordinates went through so much to bring you back, yet you don't have the heart to seek revenge. How long do you think they'll tolerate you? If they really disregard everything, what do you think your biggest weakness is? Nangong Quan subconsciously glanced at Little Eggshell. Of course, Mo Ting's reminder struck Mo Ting's heart. Chiu Jin already had a grudge against him, so if things really escalated to the point of falling out, the first thing he needed to ensure was Little Eggshell's safety. As she sat beside Mo Ting and listened to the conversation between Nangong Quan and Mo Ting, she suddenly laughed. Why do I feel like the two of you are so similar? Originally, we could have been friends, Mo Ting said as he put down his phone and hugged her. From the looks of the situation, it's not Nangong Quan that we need to be wary of, but the clowns behind us. So, not only Tongning, but Hai Rui also stepped up their security. Meanwhile, Xiao Sen's daughter had requested 3 months of leave from Tongning. Meanwhile, Tongning had already flown to the US for training as a director. And right now, Tongning was also building her new team, Starshot. Even though she had gathered all the geniuses together, she still had to go through intensive training. Otherwise, she would not be able to directly utilize their talents. While the Ant Queen 2 was being prepared, the crew of Parasite officially entered the filming phase. Apart from Tongning and Springfall, a lot of other film companies were also getting involved in the production of sci-fi films. But they all sent Hai Rui invitations to invite Tongning to be their consultant. It was obvious that they all wanted to produce a good sci-fi film. But their actions received a lot of support from the public. At least, they were no longer the same as before, where they would make a shoddy film just to fill in the gaps in the genre. The success of The Ant Queen was like a wake-up call to the public. They now knew how much the public craved good films, and Tongning provided them with the best results. As a result, Tongning's name became synonymous with quality in every aspect of the entertainment industry. As long as Tongning was involved, regardless of whether it was an actor or a film, it meant that the film was of high quality. Because she was the best detector for bad films. As a result, Tongning realized that she now had a greater say. But because of her increased responsibility, she had less time to speak. Under these circumstances, if another film and television agency came looking for her, would she be able to accept them? The answer was, of course not. The film industry had always been uneven and sci-fi films required a lot of investment. So, Tongning didn't want to hold others to the same standards as the Ant Queen. She was willing to go bankrupt, but did others have the guts to take the gamble? So, Tongning asked Mo Ting to reject her as a consultant on her behalf. So, as her manager, Mo Ting naturally helped her avoid any problems. Tongning has already re-signed with Hai Rui. Their contract states that an artist can only work for the agency for the rest of their life. At least, for the duration of their contract. As a result, Tongning cannot participate in the production of other companies' films. Tongning is currently working on The Ant Queen 2. But she is merely a staff member of the film industry, she is not a god. I hope you won't hold her to the standards of a god. At the same time, she is also a mother of 3 children. She will spend most of her time taking care of them and educating them. All in all, even though a lot of people believed that Tongning could guide the production of other companies' sci-fi films, the chances of this happening weren't high. But this also proved how many supporters Tongning had at the moment. She wasn't someone that could be compared to a superstar or an international supermodel. Her existence was already representative of the arts. Of course, because of the Ant Queen, the public was a lot more tolerant of Tongning than before. This was what people meant when they said, one's work speaks for itself. Most importantly, Tongning was no different from how she was in the past, yet she kept a lower profile. She still remembered where she stood, so it was no wonder that many people, both domestically and overseas, viewed her as an idol. However, Tongning had been living in seclusion for a long time and did not give Qiu-jin a chance. This made Qiu-jin anxious. After Mo Zichen's eyes recovered, Tongning brought them home. After all, children with parents to take care of them were more confident and safe. This was a very important thing. Of course, before they knew it, it was time for the two brothers to go to school. So, Mo Ting had already made arrangements for them. In order not to cause a commotion, the two brothers used their English names instead of their Chinese names and tried not to let their classmates know who their parents were. He simply wanted to give them a low-profile learning environment. Chapter 1130. Although Tongning had previously revealed her identity at the Zhai family's wedding, the children's appearances were constantly changing. So, it wasn't too difficult to hide their identities. Because of this, Tongning hired a helper to be their home tutor and take them home every day. As a result, the two brothers ended up attending Beijing's Huanglin Academy, the best public school in the country. Regardless of their family background, the children there would be judged by their grades. So, the two brothers were going to suffer. Of course, there was one unsurprising coincidence. Nangong Quan's daughter, Little Eggshell, also attended the same school. She was just a year ahead of the two brothers. Other people's children were personally taken to school by their parents so that the teachers would know their children's identities and take care of them. But the Mo couple did not. Their son needed to be trained from a young age and couldn't be as delicate as a girl. So, Mo Ting was ruthless. Back when he was a few years old, his English was already very fluent. So, how bad could his son be? But the reality was, Mo Zishi got along well with his classmates, but Mo Zichen didn't. After all, Zichen's eye was injured and his scar was still there. So, both boys and girls did not dare to get too close to him. But Mo Zichen didn't care. But not too long after starting school, the two brothers still got into trouble. There was a chubby boy in their class that liked to bully Zichen. Because of the scar on his face, the chubby boy was slightly older than the other kids, so he was able to communicate better. "You're so ugly. You're the ugliest kid in our class." Mo Zichen continued to play with his building blocks and ignored the chubby boy. "My mom said you're mute. Only mutes don't talk." After Mo Zishi went to the bathroom, he saw the chubby boy laughing at his brother. So he immediately threw a punch at him. Don't talk about my brother." Mo Zishi may not have expressed how Mo Zichen got his injury, but he knew that his brother had protected him. So, now that his brother was being bullied, he naturally had to stand in front of him and protect him. Then, the little fatty was beaten to tears. He called his teacher to complain. "Teacher, they beat me." At the time, the teacher in charge of the class tried her best to investigate the background of the children. She even found out that the chubby boy's mother was the boss of a hotel chain. However, the two brothers were picked up by a sister in a cheap car every day, so they couldn't be from a rich family. Therefore, she naturally sided with the chubby boy. "You two, you're so young, yet you don't learn good things. How did you learn to beat people up? Call your parents." As this was the first time, when news of the incident reached the ears of the Mo couple, Tongning simply let out a laugh. "Our son hit someone. Miss Tang, it was actually the other party's fault." Zishi was simply protecting Zichen. Su Yuran replied. This woman was a retired soldier and had good fighting skills. So, Tongning hired her because she liked her. She squatted down and pinched her son's cheeks. At school, they are the only ones without any backing, so they will definitely be bullied. Why didn't you reveal your identity? Our background can protect them, but it can also cause them a lot of trouble. I'd rather they stay like this and protect each other than be surrounded by reporters, Tongning replied. When they get a little older, they'll understand. Su Yuran nodded her head. You're right. So, the two little idiots had to protect each other and continue their daily life of being bullied. But, the two idiots attended the same school as Little Eggshell. Although they didn't know each other, the subordinate that Nangong Quan sent to and from school on behalf of Nangong Quan had seen the two rascals walk out of school hand in hand. At first, he thought they looked familiar. But when he thought about it carefully, he remembered that he had seen them at the Zhai family's wedding. So, he told Nangong Quan about it. But, Nangong Quan did not react. They were in the same school, not the same grade or the same class. As long as they didn't interact with each other, it was fine. But, Qiu Jin ended up overhearing this. He tried everything he could think of from Tongning, but he couldn't find the right opportunity. Now that he found out the two rascals were at Huanglin College, wasn't he just going to wear out iron shoes to find them? Look at how cunning the Mo family are. No one has any idea that their children are actually at Huanglin College. But the school is heavily guarded and there are people taking them to and from school. It's not easy for us to find the right opportunity. Qiu Jin took a deep puff of his cigarette and threw it onto the ground. He then stepped on it. In that case, we'll follow the cars and make our move when we see a suitable location. Okay, we'll do as you say. No one knew that Qiu Jin had his eyes on the two Mo family babies. Of course, they had no idea how good Su Yuran's fighting skills were. So, they had to see for themselves. They thought she was just a weak little sister taking the twins to and from school. In order to cause trouble for the two, Qiu Jin camped outside the school for a few days. After confirming with his own eyes that Su Yuran was the only one there and no one from the Mo family, he decided to make his move on Friday afternoon. After all, he already knew the route Su Yuran would take to take the kids home. But, Qiu Jin never expected that Little Eggshell would see him squatting down in the car. As soon as Little Eggshell returned home, she reported to Nangong Quan, Daddy, I saw Grandfather Qiu at the school gates today. Are you sure you saw right? Nangong Quan asked as he carried Little Eggshell onto his lap. I saw him a few times, I'm sure. Why did Grandfather Qiu come to our school? What else could he do? Of course, he was here for the twins. Eggshell, you don't need to worry about anything. Just promise Daddy that when you're in danger, you'll stay away, okay? You need to know that Daddy can't survive without you. Although Little Eggshell couldn't understand Nangong Quan's emotions, she agreed to his every request. However, she still felt that Grandfather Qiu was acting strange. Plus, he kept staring at the twins. Was he planning to do something bad? With this thought, Little Eggshell secretly made a plan. She would definitely notice Grandfather Qiu's movements and give the two boys a warning. To be honest, it was because the two boys were really cute. Especially the one that didn't like to talk. He was just like her father. Chapter 1131. Over the next 2 days, not only did Little Eggshell find out which classroom the twins attended, but she also found out their English names. Until Friday afternoon after school. Little Eggshell deliberately followed behind the brothers because she wanted to take another look at them. But as soon as the brothers boarded their car, she noticed that Qiu Jin's car had left with them. Little Eggshell immediately found the driver who would take her to school. Uncle, hurry up and follow Grandpa Qiu's car. Miss, follow them. If Dad asks, tell him it was my idea. As Little Eggshell grew up without a mother by her side, she was very sensitive and she expressed herself very accurately. Nangong Quan's subordinates had no choice but to follow Qiu Jin's car from afar. Qiu Jin wanted to stop Su Yuran while she drove to a secluded area. In reality, he did exactly that. Just like last time, Xia Yuling stopped Zichen on the way to the hospital. A screeching sound could be heard. Su Yuran was intercepted by a black car. Then, 5 men got off the black car with iron rods in their hands. "We're not looking for you. We're looking for the 2 brothers in your car." Su Yuran turned her head and glanced at the 2 brothers in the car as she comforted them. "Auntie needs to get out of the car to deal with some matters. Be good and stay in the car. Don't move around, okay?" Mo Zishi and Mo Zichen stretched their necks, but they still nodded their heads obediently. Su Yuran took this opportunity to get out of the car. Without a trace of panic, she simply put on a pair of black boxing gloves. Just 5 people? Seeing Su Yuran's stance, the men guessed that she had some skills and were a little afraid. But at this time, Qiu Jin ordered, "What are you waiting for? Arrest him." The 4 men rushed towards Su Yuran, but the man in the lead was sent flying by a beautiful roundhouse kick from Su Yuran. As for the other 3 men, they froze in place. This level of skill, she wasn't just a professional, was she? Charge. The men soon got into a scuffle. At this time, Qiu Jin took the opportunity to run to the back of the car. He wanted to open the door on the left and carry the brothers out. But Little Eggshell's car caught up to them. Before the car came to a complete stop, Little Eggshell asked the driver to drive for her. "Uncle, help them." "Help them? Miss?" The driver felt helpless. "Otherwise, I'll tell Dad that you bullied me." What was the driver supposed to do? He could only obediently get out of the car and let Little Eggshell run out. He knew that Qiu Jin wouldn't hurt her. "Grandfather Qiu, go, go." Little Eggshell immediately ran forward and bit Qiu Jin's arm. She then closed the car door and stood in front of the brothers. "Kaier, why are you here?" This was Little Eggshell's real name, Nangong Kai. Qiu Jin held his hand in pain as he looked at Eggshell. Yuran Qiu Eggshell. Meanwhile, Su Yuran had successfully dealt with the 4 men and was about to capture Qiu Jin. "Big sister, don't hurt Grandpa Qiu, okay?" Su Yuran tilted her head and looked at Little Eggshell. The little girl only knew how to protect others. So, she threw Qiu Jin to the side. "If it wasn't for the fact that you're a little girl, I would have broken all your ribs today. I'm going to be fired." Qiu Jin crawled up from the ground and ran away with his men. At this time, Little Eggshell's driver arrived to pick her up. "Miss, let's go. If we don't go home soon, I'm going to get fired." Little Eggshell glanced at the 2 brothers in the car and relaxed before she left with her driver. But this little girl left a deep impression in Su Yuran's heart. Of course, the Mo brothers probably felt the same way. Soon, news of Qiu Jin causing trouble spread throughout the 2 families, even though Qiu Jin didn't gain anything out of it. After all, he never expected Su Yuran to be so good at martial arts. No wonder Tongning trusted a girl to escort her sons to and from school. Meanwhile, Nangong Quan called Qiu Jin into his office and handed him a block of ice. "Put this on your face." "I've heard everything from Little Eggshell. Uncle Qiu, can't you just stop? I've waited for over 20 years, yet you're telling me to stop? Nangong Quan, you can do it. You can forget how your family died, but I can't. I can't forget how my wife and unborn child died. Uncle Qiu, in the past, Grandpa lived a dangerous life. Have you ever thought about the families that Grandpa hurt and the people that died because of him? Especially Elder Mo's confidant, that female celebrity. Who are they going to get revenge on? I don't care. I know you've been unhappy with me ever since I returned. How about this? I'll give Springfall back to you. From now on, you get your revenge and I'll live my life." Nangong Quan said, "Uncle Qiu, I'm grateful that you waited for me all these years. But the revenge that I want is fair and square." After speaking, Nangong Quan stood up and gave up his position as CEO. "You don't need to go. My brother gave me the money to start this company. I'm leaving." After speaking, Qiu Jin turned around and left the office without looking back. But asking him to give up on revenge was a fool's dream. Late at night, Hyatt Regency. After coaxing the kids to sleep, Tongning entered Mo Ting's study room and sat down beside him. Luckily, Yuran was here today. I also need to thank the daughter of the Nangong family. However, I still insist that grandfather didn't do anything wrong. I never thought that Nangong Kwan's daughter would be so understanding at such a young age. She's a good girl. I'll deal with the aftermath. Don't worry, Mo Ting replied. Ting, rather than sitting around and waiting for death, I think it's better to find Chiu Jin and talk to him openly. It's better than him plotting against us every time, Tongning suggested. I don't want to sit around and wait for death. After all, a child's life isn't something to be trifled with. I'll find an opportunity to make arrangements, Mo Ting nodded. On Monday morning, Tongning prepared a cake and handed it to the two brothers. She then knelt down and said, "You need to give this to the lady that saved you the other day, okay? You can't eat it yourself." Mo Zishi nodded his head in a daze. Meanwhile, Mo Zichen did not say a word. "Ran, sorry to trouble you." Su Yuran held onto the two kids' hands and smiled. "It's fine. I'll take them to thank the little girl." Tongning stood up and watched as the trio left. At times, she wondered if this was an ill-fated relationship, the daughter of her enemy. It was already good enough that they didn't fight when they saw each other. Who would have thought that they would be involved in something like this? Chapter 1132. Soon, the three of them arrived at the school gates. At this time, Little Eggshell also stepped out of the car. However, this time, Nangong Kwan was the one that dropped her off. Su Yuran did not think too much into it. Of course, she had no idea about the grudge between Nangong Kwan and the Mo family. So, she held onto the hands of the two kids and asked them to hand over the cake. "How should you greet your savior?" Two young gentlemen. Mo Zichen didn't move, but Mo Zishi was very honest. He handed the cake to Little Eggshell. Nangong Kwan didn't know what to say, and Little Eggshell looked at her father, unsure if she should accept it. After a while, Nangong Kwan finally relented. "Take it, sir, you have taught your daughter well." Nangong Kwan glanced at Su Yuran. After confirming that she was the martial artist, he looked at her meaningfully before he left with Little Eggshell, who was holding onto the cake box. Su Yuran was a little confused, so as she drove the two brothers home, she mentioned it to Tongning. After hearing this, Tongning laughed. "You probably don't pay attention to him, so you might not know who he is. He is the CEO of Springfall that's been appearing on the news a lot recently, Nangong Kwan. He's an old enemy of the Mo family." "No wonder." Su Yuran understood. "In that case, the next time I see you, it's best if I don't greet you. I don't want to make things awkward." "No need. We are the ones who have a grudge against him, not you," Tongning smiled. "That man doesn't look easy to get along with." This was Su Yuran's first impression of Nangong Kwan. To be exact, he was a reserved man that wasn't easy to get along with. Who cared? It had nothing to do with her anyway. Of course, Su Yuran wasn't the only one feeling awkward. That night, after returning home, Nangong Kwan carried Little Eggshell on his lap and asked, "Tell Daddy, do you really like those two boys?" "Daddy?" Little Eggshell mumbled. "Eggshell, Daddy doesn't want to interfere with your decision to make friends, but you can't have too much contact with boys, understand? Learn to protect yourself." Little Eggshell nodded. If not for the incident that happened more than 20 years ago, perhaps one of the two Mo brothers could have been chosen as his son-in-law. But now, "Daddy, didn't you say you wanted to find a mother for Eggshell? Why hasn't Eggshell seen Mommy yet? What kind of mother does Eggshell like? What type? Do you want someone pretty, or someone who can play with eggshells?" Nangong Kwan asked Little Eggshell carefully. He had decided to remarry because he wanted to give Little Eggshell a complete family. So, he didn't expect that he would like Little Eggshell. As long as Little Eggshell was satisfied, he was happy. Just like that big sister. When she smiles, it's so warm. Which big sister? That's it, Nangong Kwan finally realized what was going on. Little Eggshell must have taken a liking to the two brothers' upbringing, the one with good fighting skills and a bright and clean appearance. Can't it be someone else? Eggshell just feels that the big sister is very amiable. I like her very much. Since little Eggshell liked it, what else could he do? That night, Nangong Quan ordered his men to investigate Su Yuran's family background. It seemed he was going to steal her from the Mo family. Su Yuran was lying at home all by herself. She had no idea that someone had secretly taken a liking to her. Tongning decided to have a chat with Qiu Jin, so Mo Ting made the necessary arrangements. However, Qiu Jin had one condition. He could see Tongning, but Mo Ting couldn't appear. Otherwise, there was no point in talking. President, be careful. Lu Che reminded. It's too dangerous for the madam to go alone. Qiu Jin simply said that I can't appear. He didn't say that Tongning can't bring anyone with her. Mo Ting played with words. When the time comes, you just need to bring a few people with you to protect her. Where is Qiu Jin meeting? The cemetery. His wife and son's death anniversary was coming up soon, so Qiu Jin only agreed to meet at the cemetery. Otherwise, they would have no choice but to fight endlessly. Tongning temporarily compromised. After all, she was now the mother of 3 children, and compared to Mo Ting, she didn't need as much face. So, it was best for her to show up. However, Nangong Quan also heard about this matter. The Mo family wants to negotiate with Uncle Qiu in private because they want to resolve their grudge. But they don't understand Uncle Qiu at all. Uncle Qiu is stubborn. Do you think Mo Ting temporarily compromised because he listened to someone? Nangong Quan asked as he looked at his assistant. The two of them are simply using peaceful means before resorting to force. In that case, let's just focus on watching the show, Nangong Quan's assistant replied. Have you done what I asked you to do? Nangong Quan asked as he lifted his head. Have you sent the Su family an invitation? President, will the other party be wary of you because of your identity? What identity? Nangong Quan asked. Damn it, I said the wrong thing. You've seen the information. Su Yuran is nothing but a sacrifice in the Su family. Did you think they'd reject me? Nangong Quan's assistant scratched his head and let out an awkward laugh. You need to handle this matter well. Otherwise, you might as well leave. Su Yuran was sent to join the army because her mother didn't want her daughter to be bullied all year round. Her mother was disabled, so she was naturally ostracized by her family. But she refused to get a divorce and continued to waste her time with Su Yuran's father. But her father wasn't willing to stay by a disabled woman's side. So, he found someone to take care of her and continued to live outside. With such a tough life, how could Su Yuran still be able to smile so brightly? Who gave her warmth? Nangong Quan probably had no resistance to warm people. So, apart from following Little Eggshell's instructions, he also began to research Su Yuran. He sent the invitation to the Su family without letting Su Yuran know. He wanted the Su family to know of his existence so he could subdue Su Yuran. That way, it would be much easier. Previously, to satisfy Little Eggshell, he even prepared all sorts of female celebrities. But, from the looks of it, Little Eggshell only liked simple and sunny things. So, he rejected all the invitations from the industry and personally took Little Eggshell to and from school. That way, he could spend more time with Su Yuran. Daddy, aren't you busy with work? Eggshell wants mommy, right? Daddy's always busy with work, how can mommy come? Nangong Quan said as he held onto his daughter's hand. Little Eggshell laughed as she understood Nangong Quan's intention. You can do it, Daddy. Good job. At that moment, Su Yuran walked in front of the father and daughter with the 2 Mo brothers. Chapter 1133. To create an opportunity for her father, Little Eggshell threw away Nangong Quan's hand and walked over to Su Yuran. Big sis, let me take them to their classroom. I know where it is. Since they were already at the school gates, Su Yuran handed the 2 little devils to Little Eggshell. Thank you in advance. You're welcome. After speaking, Little Eggshell turned around and glanced at her father, gesturing for him to seize the opportunity. But Nangong Quan had no intention of making a move yet. Su Yuran turned around and saw Nangong Quan standing behind her. She did not say a word as she headed straight for her car. Of course, Nangong Quan had no reason to chase after her. Little Eggshell watched from afar as Nangong Quan let Su Yuran leave like that. She despised her father. He didn't even take the initiative as much as she did. But she didn't know that adults were always defenseless towards children. Apart from taking the Mo twins to and from school, Su Yuran spent the rest of her time studying. After being in the military for so long, she had already lost touch with the outside world. She really wanted to break away from her family, so she worked hard to create value for herself. She understood that her mother didn't want to be a burden to her, so she didn't want to divorce her father. But she didn't think she needed her mother to make such a sacrifice. With this thought, Su Yuran worked even harder. Of course, this was all thanks to Tongning's salary, which allowed her to pursue her dreams and career. At that moment, Su Yuran was in the middle of class. Meanwhile, Nangong Quan stood outside the school and watched her for half an hour. Su Yuran didn't just attend one class. She also spent the entire day studying. Her most relaxing time of the day was when she took the Mo twins to and from school. Afterwards, she returned to the home that she ran away from and watched as her parents sat together. "I heard you're tutoring the child of the superstar, Tongning?" Father Su asked Su Yuran during dinner. "Aha," Su Yuran nodded her head. "If that's the case, your income must be quite good. You've seen your mother's current situation. From now on, you should contribute a little to help the family," Father Su said. "If I remember correctly, you have 3 companies under your name, right?" Su Yuran asked. "What do you mean?" Papa Su's expression suddenly changed. "I joined the army when I was very young, so it was the country that raised me, not my father. As for my mother, I can pay the full amount, but only if my mother is willing to divorce you." Su Yuran asked straightforwardly. "Yuran, the evidence of this man's philandering is everywhere. When the court decides, it should be enough to split half of his wealth. Pretend I didn't say anything tonight." Father Su knew Su Yuran wasn't joking, so he tried his best to calm the mother and daughter down. However, as he stood up, he did not forget to curse Mother Su. "You should have died earlier." As Mother Su burst into tears, Su Yuran asked, "Why won't you get a divorce?" "This is my problem, it has nothing to do with you." Auntie Su replied, "Even if I die, I will drag him down with me for the rest of his life. If he's going to suffer, we'll suffer together." "But don't drag me down," Su Yuran replied. "If you don't leave, I'll suffer with you. If I leave on my own, I won't be able to let go." Mother Su suddenly remembered Nangong Quan's visiting card. She didn't tell Su Yuran's father about it, otherwise, he might actually sell his daughter. She simply thought, if a woman married Nangong Quan, she would have someone to rely on and wouldn't have to worry about being bullied anymore. So, Mother Su arranged to meet Nangong Quan in private without Su Yuran and Nangong Quan knowing. Meanwhile, Tongning's meeting with Qiu Jin was officially confirmed. Qiu Jin made it clear that he didn't want to see anyone from the Mo family, so Tongning was the only one to meet him. Mo Ting naturally made the necessary arrangements. But what did Qiu Jin plan on doing? This was, of course, the best opportunity to kidnap Tongning. After all, he had been at the cemetery for over 20 years, so he knew every single exit. Since Tongning had delivered herself to him, there was no need for him to hold back. "Uncle Qiu, when the time comes, we will have our men stationed at all the exits. It'll be easy to kidnap Tongning," one of Qiu Jin's subordinates said as he pointed to a map of the cemetery. "As long as we secure the exits, no one will be able to get in." "Let's go with this plan," Qiu Jin replied. "The couple is extremely cunning. You need to be extra careful. Even if we can't kidnap the 2 rascals, it's not a bad idea to kidnap Mo Ting's sweetheart. I didn't manage to kidnap the 2 little bastards from the Mo family, but it's not bad to kidnap Mo Ting's sweetheart. If we succeed this time, I will be able to comfort the souls of my wife and son." But how could it be so easy to make a move on Tongning? Even though the entire cemetery was filled with people and even though every exit was sealed, as long as President Mo wanted to enter, no one would be able to stop him, even if he had to fly into the sky or dive into the ground. Soon, Bai Junyi's sci-fi film, Parasite, officially began filming. At the same time, Tang Ning's The Ant Queen 2 was also in the midst of preparations. This was a blessing for film fans. Because of Tang Ning's persistence, sci-fi films were indeed progressing in the right direction. As a result, Tang Ning's status in the hearts of film fans naturally rose to another level. Another piece of good news was that, after Lin Qian finished her confinement, she announced that she would be returning to Superstar Media and relaunching it. In other words, she would be replacing Tang Ning in poaching outdated artists. At this time, Long Jie had already returned home to rest. Because Tang Ning did not need an assistant, Lu Che could handle her daily needs. During this time, Fang Yu would become Mo Ting's assistant and Lu Che would be able to give Tang Ning more time. At the moment, the entertainment industry was still thriving. Every day, there were new debuts and old faces falling. Every day, there were endless scandals and fights between artists. But, it seemed, Tang Ning had already broken away from all of this. Because, in the eyes of the public, she was no longer just an artist, a producer, or an actress. She represented good films and represented the rise of sci-fi. All of this made her status in the industry even more significant. And Mo Ting was the one that created greatness. But the public had no way of knowing about Tang Ning's secret. Especially now that she even had to deal with her enemies. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.